Hey there, guys, and welcome back to the Travis and Damian podcast, episode 77. We're available on anchor.fm/Travis Damian podcast, along with Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. If you guys would like to ask us any questions, you can leave a voice message at the anchor link or in the YouTube comment section. Today, we're going to be talking about some quick news in the entertainment world. Then we'll be ranking our favorite games of 2021. Next, our thoughts on Disney Plus's Hawkeye show. Lastly, our spoiler thoughts on Spider-Man No Way Home. So, first bit of news is that Sony has officially announced that they are making PS5 faceplates, like actual, like different colors. And on top of that, they are going to be releasing a couple of different controllers within this like Galaxy-inspired colorway. It looks cool. It looks neat. I think the faceplates are like $50 each, which I think is kind of reasonable. I mean, they're just pieces of plastic at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But if you want your PS5 to sort of stand out from the traditional white ones, I think that this is a pretty good solution, especially because the PS5 has been in such scarcity. There hasn't been anyone able to really make a like special edition PS5, and this sort of paves the way and allows people to get different colors without having to sort of buy like these special edition consoles, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really used like faceplate features because I know the 3DS was pretty big with that.
Mm-hmm.
I never really bothered with it. But this, I'm looking at the black one. I'm like, that looks pretty sick. So, yeah, like I don't know. Like I would definitely be tempted to buy the black cover plates plus a black DualSense because I just like how, I think PlayStation is just associated with it being like a more black like color.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it looks really nice. Some of them look really good. I wish the red was more like red. It's like this weird like not pink but like not red if you know what I'm talking about. Same with the blue.
Saying.
It's like baby blue. Like if it was like a dark blue then maybe, but yeah, the black one looks really nice.
Mm-hmm. Definitely the red is sort of like in the middle of like being red but also being sort of like a little lighter. It's definitely in like a weird middle. But yeah, I think that since, I think that there was that one company we talked about many episodes ago that was trying to, create their own faceplates, and Sony quickly shut them down because I'm sure that would have caused issues with the PS5, and they wanted to finally announce that, hey, now we have official ones, because maybe they wanted to just make sure that, the ones that they made were that they weren't going to break the console, if you will, because I'm sure that there have been people that have bought third-party faceplates or whatever, and they might have caused some issues with the console. I'm not sure. Obviously, that's a very sort of like small minority, but I'm sure because Sony has now announced their official ones, these should be hopefully ready for the market and not cause any issues. Because, if these come out and then people are like, hey, yo, like my PS5 overheated and shit like that because of this new faceplate, it's going to be a little weird, especially because they are the manufacturers of this console, and it's kind of hard to mess up different colored plastic, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I might not even touch it until like PS5s are more like available, just in case if I mess it up or something. But same thing why I haven't really installed a new like the extra SSD space, because I know you can now. I mean, one is expensive, but also like I don't want to mess up my PS5 right now. Like I think now is still like the worst time to mess up your PS5 or try to do anything with it. So I'm just gonna wait until the more in the market and it's not as crazy to get one, just in case if I break it, like I won't like cry. So yeah, but this is definitely cool. I always like it when companies that you customize your console a little bit. Even though I don't really do it much, like I'm pretty tempted to get the black face plates and stuff, because like I said, like all my consoles are black, so like the white like PS5 kind of sticks out. So
yeah, and the black's easier to hide the dust. So
that too. Yeah, like I noticed how dusty my consoles get if it's like anything but black. So yeah, definitely don't like that. All right, so next we got some trailers. We got Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So if you watched No Way Home, this is the same like trailer at the end of the credits in there. And yeah, it looks like it's taking place like after the fact of No Way Home, I'm guessing, because it's like everything's all messed up. And obviously this ties into all the everything they've been leading up to, like Loki and stuff as well, because the whole multiverse is just messed up. And yeah, it looks really cool. Like I really like Doctor Strange, and it's actually really weird because I think he's only had one movie up to this point by himself.
Yes.
He only had his introductory movie, but he's been in so many Avengers stuff that he just feels really prominent, and I just really like the character now. So when I'm like, oh yeah, this is just his second movie, it's pretty crazy to think about it like that,
Yeah, definitely. I think that in his movie, in my opinion. I don't think it's like the top tier of MCU, but I don't think it's like the bottom tier either. It's enjoyable, but I'm not like super crazy about it. But I think in everything else that Doctor Strange is in, within Ragnarok, within the Avengers movies, and within No Way Home, no spoilers, but you know, he is great in everything else. So to see him in this second movie, especially since this is the follow-up to No Way Home in a sense, this movie is probably going to do pretty well, especially since because it is tying in a lot of the stuff, like you said, that is leading up to this movie in a sense, with Loki, with Spider-Man, etc., WandaVision. There's a lot sort of riding on this movie, and it's going to be pretty cool to see what happens because this is Sam Raimi's return to directing a superhero movie, you know? And if you watch the trailer, you can definitely tell with some of the shots and the way that this is directed, Sam Raimi is directing this movie. I think the first shot in this trailer with the broken watch and you see Doctor Strange in that reflection, I'm like, yeah, that's fucking Sam Raimi right there. So, you know, people on Twitter are definitely going to have their field day when it comes to praising Sam Raimi because of the nostalgia from the Spider-Man movies and all that shit. But yeah, I'm very excited to see this movie, not just because of Sam Raimi's directorial return to superhero movies, but also because Doctor Strange has just been a character that I have been liking a lot more ever since his after his movie. You know, I think everything else that he's been in besides his movie has been pretty good.
Yeah, I feel literally the exact same way. Like, I thought his movie was all right. Like, I thought it was just, you know, pretty decent origin story. Like, we're pretty used to that at that point. So but now seeing how fleshed out he's gotten and how interesting of a character he is, especially with like his powers, just like, you know, it's just magic. He could do a lot of things with it. And this trailer really shows like how crazy he's going with the magic and stuff. Like the visual effects are really good. So yeah, I'm just really excited to see a second movie with him now that he's a more like established character and like, you know, people like actually like him now. You know, like we're more invested into the character. I mean, same thing. I felt the same thing with Thor, right? Like I thought Thor 1 and 2 were just, well, Thor 1 was okay, and you know, Dark World was pretty not great. But you know, when he was in more Avengers stuff and you know with just the other superheroes, and then with Ragnarok, he really came to his own. I'm hoping the same thing happens with Doctor Strange here, which I'm pretty sure is going to happen. And I guess that What If episode was kind of important because the evil Doctor Strange looks like to be the main villain in this one, so that's pretty interesting as well. Yeah, again, like you said, I'm very excited to see how Sam Raimi is gonna like sort of put his own spin on the MCU and stuff because it looks very unique from the other Marvel movies, which again is why I like Marvel so much because you know the different directors bring their own spins to things and just the genre itself. You know, yeah, I'm just really looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, like I said, people on Twitter are going to have their field day when this movie comes out just to see how Sam Raimi, you know, directs Doctor Strange in particular, because he did make a Doctor Strange reference within his Spider-Man movie. So now it all sort of comes full circle where he's now actually directing a Doctor Strange movie. And I think that when the original director for this movie left and they got Sam Raimi to do this, I think people got a lot more excited for this movie, and understandably so. So I'm right on board with everyone else, and I'm looking forward to this film when it hopefully, you know, debuts in theaters on May 6th. But, you know, with everything going down, who the fuck knows, right?
Yeah, things have been getting a little spooky again because, you know, everything's
Anyways, next bit of news is the Uncharted movie trailer number 2. This literally just dropped this morning. So it's more of the same. We do get a couple of more scenes with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg as their characters. And yeah, I mean, I think that this movie, it's going to be fun, like either way. Like you said, Damian, many times when we talk about this movie, it's kind of hard to fuck this up. Like it's literally just Indiana Jones, but with the Uncharted characters in a way, and they're pulling a lot of different elements from the games, which is kind of interesting, especially since this is like a prequel movie. So I think that this will be fun. This will be enjoyable. It's just that I think that with a movie like this, when you have blockbuster sort of like big stars like Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland, it's going to be hard for audiences to see them as anything else but themselves, especially with Tom Holland with his success as Spider-Man. But you know, Tom Holland, he's a fantastic actor, and I'm sure that he's going to do well in this movie. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm very, you know, hesitant to see what happens with reviews, because if it does end up doing very, very poorly, which I don't think it will, when it comes to like Rotten Tomatoes and all of that other stuff, I might be a little hesitant to go see it. But I'm definitely looking forward to this one still, regardless of, you know, what people may say or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's still yeah. I mean, it looks fine. Like I said before, it's just Indiana Jones because that's what Uncharted. It's kind of well, Tomb Raider also and stuff. So it seems like a really hard thing to mess up, but video game things are always hard to like adapt. But again, this really shouldn't be. I wouldn't really see it in theaters. Like this doesn't really look like a thing I would see in theaters. Something I would just like maybe watch when it goes on like streaming services or whatever. Plus, I don't want it to like ruin the story of Uncharted because I never played those games yet. So yeah, that's also the issue. Like, if a video game thing does come out and I've not seen it, like played the games yet, I would rather just play the games, right? I guess that's how some people feel about like book adaptations as well. Like you'd rather just read the book or manga to anime. It's always that same stuff. They're gonna either condense a lot of plot points into like a single movie, or they're gonna skim some things over, or just cut things out entirely. There's always like a weird risk of like adapting things, and if they just put their own spin to it, I think it'll be fine. Like it doesn't have to follow it to a T if it's gonna do something like so different anyway, because again I don't know what they're gonna be doing with this because it's like a young Nathan Drake, and like how I guess he gets his start, but they're pulling a bunch of plot points from the games that happen later. It seems kind of weird, but if they think they can make it work, then I guess so. Is anyone in the writing team from the games? Like I forgot. Like
this is just no idea.
Yeah, I think it's just its own thing. So like I have more faith in the Last of Us show. Let's just put it like that, because we know there's people working on like that worked on the game on that show. With this one, just seems more like just a blockbuster thing that you'll watch and like kind of just forget about. But who knows? I could be wrong. It could like spawn like 2 more movies. I don't know. But from what I'm seeing, it looks okay. Like a decent action movie.
Yeah, I definitely think that if they were going to do a Uncharted movie, they should have just adapted one of the games, in my opinion. Just because Uncharted 1 through 4. The story is just so like tight, and like they are able to tell Nathan Drake's story so well, even his beginnings, which is sort of like what this movie is trying to tell. I guess even before what the games have shown us, but it does seem a little weird on how the timeline is. I'm sure there's some people out there that are like Uncharted sort of like lore people, and they're trying to like piece everything together from the 4 games to Golden Abyss and everything else in between. So how this movie plays into it, who the hell knows? But I'm looking forward to this, but I'm definitely holding my breath on it.
Yeah, again, I still think probably the best video game adaptations has been Arcane, and I know that's not a movie, but like I just want to say like
and Sonic.
The way, and you know what, Sonic is pretty good too. I wouldn't say it's the best, but they did a good job. So yeah, let's just see if we could get that ball rolling with video game adaptations, because that's always exciting to see.
All right, so next part of the show, we are now going to be ranking our favorite games of 2021. So if you guys are on YouTube, you will be able to see the tier list, just like with last episode when we ranked the Spider-Man movies. So this time we're just going to be ranking the games that we played this year. A lot of these, me and Damian played. Some of them Damian only played. So we'll just go through them in kind of this order from ABC. So Damian's got a lot of talking to do.
I do.
From
I got water.
All right, so first game is Binding of Isaac.
Yeah, so this is Repentance. This was the DLC that came out in March. And this is for realsies the last DLC he's doing for Isaac. He always says that, but he means it this time. And I could see it. I think Afterbirth Plus, which was the last like sort of expansion that came out, was pretty mid. Like it wasn't that great. At the Afterbirth, the one that came after Rebirth was the base game, just to keep it clear. Afterbirth was pretty good. Added some new bosses, new items, and was pretty well liked. It was pretty quality for what I expect from a DLC from Isaac. Afterbirth Plus was not really made by Macmillan, who made Isaac. It was made by Nicholas, like the publisher. And it did like a lot of weird design decisions, and a lot of the items weren't very good. Delirium, like the new final boss in that DLC, was just awful. Like I still think it's one of the worst bosses in Isaac, because it just like teleports on top of you, you die. It like has no patterns. It kind of just shoots a bunch of bullets. It just sucks, right? So Macmillan was like, okay, I'm gonna make basically a real ending to like this game, so he could like move on to like whatever other projects he wants to do. And I think he did a fantastic job. Like a lot of the new items are fantastic. He did a big balanced like patch basically within this DLC that kind of nerfed a lot of like the really overpowered items, but brought a lot of the lower tier items to like at least a B or A level. And I think it worked out really well. Like at first I was kind of miffed. I'm like, oh, like Brimstone kind of sucks now, and like Mom's Knife isn't as good. But all the other items he changed made them a lot more fun to use. And I think that's really good for a game like Isaac, where there's like so I don't even know how many items are in that game now. I think like 1,000 or something. So having only like 1 or 2 items, like good items, compared to like a sea of garbage items, like doesn't really feel good most of the time. But if you can make a lot of those lower tier items into better items, I think that just works out better for runs to be more interesting and not just like hold the reset button if you get something bad in the first item room. So I think you did a great job. The new final bosses are really good. Like I really enjoy them a lot. And once you beat those final bosses, the game like basically doubles in content. I still don't want to like spoil it too much because it's a really cool surprise, but it was just really cool to see that when the game first launched. Like just the amount of content like literally doubled, and it was really cool. You could tell he put a lot of work into this because this game was like announced in like 2019, and then it came out to like this year. So it basically feels like an Isaac 2 or I guess 3 at this point. So yeah, this is like an A tier for me personally. Like I think they're, you know, it still has the things from Afterbirth Plus that still makes it a little poopy. You know, like the still like enemy armor is still there, which is like, if you have like a really strong build, like enemies sort of scale their like health to your damage. So like if you get a really OP run, you still feel like you're not doing as much as you should because like enemies scale. I still think that's a kind of a dumb mechanic. But overall, I thought it was fantastic. This is easily like the best Isaac content I have played, and I played a lot of it. Like Monster Hunter came out at the same time as this, and I just played way more of this than Monster Hunter because I was just having so much fun. So yeah, I think Mammalian really knocked it out of the park with that DLC.
All right, so next one we got
is that Endwalker?
Yeah, I believe this is Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker.
Yeah, that's 14. Yeah. Okay, so all right, just put on the S. So yeah, this is okay. I'm gonna say this is my game of the year, but I don't know if that's fair because it's DLC and an expansion. But it's basically a whole new single player JRPG. Like, so I'm gonna say it's my game of the year, like Shadowbringers was. So yeah, so Endwalker is very, very good. However, I think Shadowbringers is slightly better just because I think it's paced better and it's more condensed. You know, Endwalker is doing a lot of things. Like, it's wrapping this whole story up. There's a lot of plot points to go through. And as a result, it just doesn't feel as paced as Shadowbringers did. Especially the beginning. The beginning is pretty slow to start with. You know, there's a lot of things going on, and I think the game could like picked up the pace a bit in the beginning. I didn't mind it as much as other people. Like some people like really didn't like the beginning. I thought it was okay. I did think it was kind of slow though. But I think my main issue with it is I think it could have been split into 2 expansions. I didn't think they had to end it with Endwalker. Like it could have been like one more expansion before this, then Endwalker, because it's very clear. Like halfway through Endwalker is like, okay, this first bit of it could have been its own expansion. Then the second half of Endwalker could have been like, you know, the actual ending, like 2 years later with the next expansion. But because I think it could have gone deeper with some things, like Garlemald, which is like the evil Empire people that have been like the villains since like the first game. Like, I felt that it kind of got done dirty. Didn't get enough like put into them, I think, in this expansion. But like I think everything else after was really good. So yeah, I definitely think it could have been split into 2 expansions. But for what it is, like the ending and all that, it was just so good. I think it ended everything really well for the most part. A lot of characters from like the previous expansions showed up. Like if you have done everything like I did, like all the other raids and trial stories and 24-man raids and stuff, like almost all those characters show up again in some form. And like it really like just appreciates your time. Like, oh, look at all these things you did. Like, isn't this great? It felt like Infinity War Endgame, basically. Like that level of closure. I think they did a fantastic job with that. But honestly, it kind of has the same problems I have with Endgame, where I feel like Endgame had some weird pacing issues too in like the middle when they were like going back in time and stuff. Like, I feel like there was some unnecessary stuff or things that could be expanded upon. Like basically those same complaints I have with Endgame is like the same things I have with Endwalker. And I think it just shows like how hard it is to end things right. You know, like most of the time, like it's not always gonna be the perfect ending you always wanted, but you could get close. And I think like Endwalker reaches that like that peak of like it ended really well, but it's still some things I wish they did a little differently. But yeah, for the most part, I thought the story was fantastic. Like, I think they did a great job, just minus some of those issues. In terms of gameplay, like I thought the new dungeons were all really good. Visually, they look really good. like it's probably some of the best looking dungeons in the game right now. The new classes, Reaper and Sage. I didn't play too much Sage because I'm not a healer. But Reaper, like the new melee DPS, is super fun. Like there's a lot of buttons going on. I'm really like liking it. I don't really like melee DPS too much in general, but I think they did a great job sort of like balancing like all the different like mechanics. You have like 40 gauges in that class. It's crazy. Like I had like get your like I forgot what it was even called, like your blood gauge and your soul gauge or whatever the hell. Like it's really fun. And the new boss fights again are also really fun. I can't really say much because it's like all spoilers, like really big spoilers too. But yeah, I thought all the new trials were like ton of fun. There was like the first trial like kind of kicked our ass. We wiped like 4 times trying to do it because there's some really interesting mechanics they added to this. And with the new raid that came out on Tuesday, like they had even more new mechanics, and it's just like a ton of fun. They're really doing a lot with the combat system now, because after like 4 expansions, kind of gotta go a little more out of the box in terms of like boss mechanics and stuff. And like the music is obviously fantastic. I think they always knock it out of the park with the music as well. Yeah, just overall, Endwalker is just fantastic. It's just a fantastic end to this game. The rest of the expansions that come out, since this is basically the end of this story and they're starting like I guess a new arc now. Like the rest can be shit now, but I could still just recommend 14 just from Realm Reborn to Endwalker. Like I think it's definitely, if you're a JRPG fan, even if you don't like MMOs, I say give it a shot. Like I think it's fantastic. Like the beginning starts off slow. Like I'm just talking about Realm Reborn. It starts off slow, but like the story becomes something really, really good. And it's like one of my favorite games like of all time now. I really love Final Fantasy 14, and Endwalker was just a perfect ending to it. I could ramble more about it, but I'm not because we have a lot of other games to go. So.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely my game of the year.
All right, so next one is Guardians of the Galaxy. So sell this game to me as a person that's only watched the movies.
Okay, so basically think of it like the movies, and it's like that. Like the writing is pretty similar to the movies. Like they definitely draw inspiration less from the comics, from what I could tell, and more from like the MCU movies. And that could feel a little jarring at first because this is just like rip-offs of like Chris Pratt and stuff. You know what I mean? Like it could feel a little jarring. Like I think Star-Lord's voice never really sells it to me. His character does, but his voice always feels a little weird to me. But the characters really come to their own for like this universe of Guardians, right? You go really deep into like sort of like the motivation stuff that you don't really get into in the movies because you have more time to flesh out each of the Guardians, except like Groot because he's a plant. But everyone else, you could really just talk to them after missions, like in your ship, and like you just talk to them. You can find little collectibles throughout the world, and like one of the characters will have something to say about it. And I thought that was kind of cool. You just get some more dialogue or whatever from collectibles. But they really get into like their backstories and stuff. And some of it could be like kind of sad. Like Rocket has some like shit. Gamora has shit. Drax has some shit. Like they all like go through like their backstories pretty well. Even in the main story, like you get like a lot of emotional moments that I was not expecting from this game. Like I think the first few missions kind of doesn't sell you on that. Like it's like, oh, wacky Guardians of the Galaxy. You know how it's gonna be. But as the story progresses, it really does have a lot of heart to it. And I think it's why it won Best Narrative, because I honestly, like, the story really surprised me how well written it was. Obviously there's going to be some moments it's like, okay, like MCU humor, basically. But for the most part, I think they really did nail a lot of these characters. And they really do feel different enough from the MCU that they don't feel too jarring from each other, if that makes any sense. It really comes to its own to be its like own thing. And I think that's really important when making a Marvel game at this point, because I think a Sony Spider-Man feels very different from any other Spider-Man, because I think Sony did a good job sort of like writing his character and making it different. And a bad example is the Avengers game, right? Because they really do feel like knockoffs of the MCU characters, and there's not enough time to really flesh any of them out because like it's a live service game. I think Guardians does a better job at doing that. Like, this is what I wanted the Avengers game to be, basically. So yeah, and if you like your gameplay wise, if you like your more narrative focused, really linear sort of Uncharted level design, it's basically that. I think the big turnoff for some people is definitely going to be the combat. I like it because the game works a lot like Final Fantasy VII Remake, where you basically control one dude, which is freaking Star-Lord. And you command each of your characters to like do something. So if you like, I think it was like if you hold L1 and like you could like cycle through your different Guardians, and then you could press one of the face buttons to make them do different things. And it actually does feel like a lot of fun, but it can feel really repetitive by the end because you kind of just run out of upgrades to like upgrade stuff, and it kind of just does feel a bit of a slog by the end in terms of combat. But I think the combat system is pretty fun, but it does get some used to. Like you're not just shooting. Like if you're just shooting, then you're not gonna kill anything. You have to like use your teamwork and stuff. And I think if the game had a sequel, it would benefit a lot from being able to switch to the other Guardians, because you can only play as Star-Lord in this game. I think it would benefit them if you could play as Gamora or Rocket or something, because I think that would add more variation to the gameplay. But yeah, honestly, this is one of the biggest surprises of the year, and I'm gonna put it on an A tier. Like, it really surprised me. By the end of the game, yeah, you can put it above Isaac. Yeah, by the end of the game, the narrative like really like like got me. I'm like, this is good. Like, this is really good. And I'm happy it got a lot of recognition during Game Awards because I think it deserves it. It's a very good single player Marvel game, and I hope this is the direction most Marvel games are going to go into now. Like, Wolverine, I have a lot of high expectations for and stuff. So yeah, I'm very excited to see. Oh, like that Wonder Woman game, I hope that's good too. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see what's the future of like these Marvel AAA games because Guardians and Spider-Man really set a high bar,
Yeah, definitely. All right, so our next game here is It Takes Two. So for me personally, this is definitely one of the most unique platforming experiences I've ever played. I think that co-op and multiplayer platforming games isn't really like a thing, really. I feel like a lot of those games that were like co-op platformers, it's usually like a tacked on thing or like something that's like sort of like a multiplayer thing. It's never like the core gameplay element, but because we are talking about Hazlight Studios here, and they are known for their last game, A Way Out, where it was a co-op required action adventure game, and now we have this one, which is a co-op required platformer, and they actually do it really, really well, not just from the platforming mechanics, but from the other sort of different gameplay styles that they throw in there. And because it does take two, as the title puts it, the way that the both players have to interact with one another and sort of work together to get these obstacles and challenges done is like very smartly done. I feel like that there's no way you could really play this game by yourself with two controllers because there's so much like timing and obviously like platforming requires timing. Because of that, it's very hard to just like be by yourself and play it with two controllers. I feel like maybe A Way Out, you maybe could have done that, but with this game, I feel like it's going to be very, very difficult. But even then, besides that point, the game itself is just so, so good. I think the story about like relationships and about sort of like, just like trying to come to a agreement with each other even when shit's going bad, I think is something that a lot of people needed, especially during these times. And it is done beautifully, and I can't say enough about the gameplay that I've already said. It's very, very good. And presentation wise, the human characters may not look that great, but that's not what you're really spending most of your time on. You're mainly in this sort of like fantasy like world where you're as dolls and you're going through these different things with like toys and stuff like that. So in my opinion, like It Takes Two is definitely like within the A tier.
Yeah, I basically agree with everything you said. Like with his last game, I really enjoyed it a lot as well. Narratively, I thought it was just a fun little thing to go through and stuff. The ending was really cool. I won't spoil it, but the ending was a pretty a nice little twist there. But gameplay-wise, it's basically like a Telltale game. They kind of move around to some light combat and stuff. So in terms of this game, I didn't know what to expect in terms of gameplay, but it was really good. Like I didn't expect to get like a really tight controlling platformer like at all. Obviously there's other things in there, like you do like other activities, not just straight up platforming, but there was a lot more platforming than I thought it was going to be, and that was a nice surprise because this year we got like basically like a lot of good platformers that I just didn't really expect because the genre isn't as bustling as it was before. And yeah, just the co-op elements were really cool. Like each level basically has its own gimmick, and you could like one player would do something else and then the other player would do the other thing, and you just gotta work together obviously to like go through the level. And it was like a ton of fun. Like, the boss fights were a lot of fun as well. Like again, uses that same heavy co-op stuff as well. And yeah, I Joseph Fares really knocked it out of the park with this game. I did think it did deserve Game of the Year. Obviously I wouldn't give my Game of the Year personally. Like I think I agree with it being an A tier game, but it was definitely really good. Like I'm really excited to see what he comes up with next because this was a really great time. I do wish I felt like the story kind of ended abruptly. Like there probably could have been one more level because I did feel it kind of end a bit abruptly. Like it was pretty long. I'm not saying it wasn't long. Yeah. It was like 9 hours, but I definitely think like it kind of like ended kind of weird. Like I don't know. To me, I feel like they had room for one more level, but they just didn't do it. But yeah, from what was there, it was all really good. Like the graphics were really nice and colorful. I really like the, because you're scaled down, so everything is really big. Like Toy Story, I guess. And yeah, just a really fun game. I really liked it a lot. I know some people really didn't like one scene with the toy elephant. I thought that was hilarious. I know I'm like messed up, but I was laughing when that was happening.
That's so fucked. That was so morbid, but
yeah, it was funny though.
Definitely when it comes to co-op required games, like Hazlight Studios are the only ones to really do it. So I think that them even making a game that's more than 6 hours long to begin with was going to be long as is. So, and it definitely shows that he had a lot of ideas going into this game because he threw a lot of different gameplay styles at us. So I think that maybe with his next game, he can be a little bit more ambitious, maybe make a slightly longer game because, because his games are co-op required, trying to get two people together to sort of play a game together and, differing schedules, maybe different time zones, etc., whatever the situation is, it can be kind of difficult to get two people at the same time to play a single game together, which, it is what it is within these times, but I guess that's just part of growing up and being a adult, right? So,
yeah, I definitely do think he hits the right length. Like, I think over 10 hours is going to be too long for like two people to really like get together all the time, unless you're like, you're married or something. But like, yeah, but if you're just playing with friends, like, it could be a little harder to like schedule that stuff. So I think it's the right length. I just felt like story wise probably could have done with one more level, but I was pretty happy with the content in the game. Like, it felt good. And of course the friend pass brings a lot of value because only one person needs to buy it. I still think that's a fantastic business model. If you're gonna like, if your game has to be co-op, then I think that's like a great way to get people to actually play the game. So, yeah,
yes.
fantastic game. Yeah.
And especially since because you sort of get that sort of like word of mouth. I mean, you get one sale, right? But you get two people playing it, and then you could have both of those people now talk about the game, whether positively or negatively, and word of mouth spreads, etc., etc. But now we're going to talk about Life is Strange True Colors. So this is a game that I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I know that we talked about it on this podcast with the rumors of Deck 9 taking the helm of the Life is Strange series and sort of what would that happen. And this is the product of that. They created True Colors, which is a much more grounded approach for the story. And it is set in a brand new town, and it is sort of like a murder mystery, very much bringing back vibes of the original Life is Strange game. But even then, Deck 9 is still able to create a original story, a original experience with new characters, and it is still Life is Strange, and it's super duper fun. I really enjoyed Alex Chen. I really enjoyed her story, her sort of new environment, her everything about her. I really enjoyed just getting to know her and all that shit. I think that maybe we could have got to know her a little bit earlier than the final episode, but I think that it probably would have messed up the pace of the story and shit like that. So, but the gameplay, I mean, like, there's not much to really say about the gameplay. It's a graphic adventure game where you're making choices, and the choices do have a slight effect on the story, but it's just a matter of what you think the character would do, sort of thing. But yeah, I think that Deck 9, if they happen to make more Life is Strange games, I am happy that they are taking control of it, because with this first one, they've shown that they know what they're doing with the series.
Yeah, I liked Before the Storm, because Deck 9 did that one as well, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Like, I thought I was more in line with what I expected from a Life is Strange game. And when Life is Strange 2 came out, obviously, I know we shit on it a lot, but it kind of deserves. Like, I don't know. I just felt like it didn't like have the same spirit as the first game. They didn't have to. Like, obviously, sequels don't have to be exactly like the first game. But I feel like moving around from location to location, not really getting to know anyone that well, like, I feel like kind of defeats the purpose of Life is Strange. Like, I feel like that game is really connected to like, connections, basically. Like, you want to get to know everyone and stuff. And have only one person you really get to know, which is like your brother in 2, kind of felt lame. Now, I know what they would try to go for, like, oh, Chloe was like your closest like friend in that game, but I think the side characters really make those games really memorable as well. And I think Life is Strange True Colors did a good job on that front. It was like you were in one location, like Haven, the whole time. You got to talk to everyone. You really got to like know everyone. There was a lot of like moments you could miss. Like, I think you missed one with Ducky or whatever, but you got like a really nice moment with him too and stuff. Like, there was just a lot of good character moments. I really like that. Like, I felt like the game could have done a bit more with that. Like, maybe there could have been a bit more of those moments, but I feel like for the most part they got all the important characters to get like something there, because in the end, you're gonna have to like do something with those characters. So I think they did a good job really making you like actually like these people and stuff. In terms of the mystery, I thought it was pretty good. I did feel like some things are a little too convenient.
Yeah.
Like, we already talked about that during our spoiler talk about it, but I felt like that was a little dumb. Like, I felt like there was very easy ways to write that convenience in, but it didn't. So it kind of just felt a little weird. And as a result, I think the main plot does feel a bit weaker than Life is Strange 1, but because I still think Life is Strange 1 is still my favorite one. But this game is very close. Like, it's very close. Like, Alex Chen was a really good protagonist. I think she did a great job. You know, her power of emotion is really cool. I wish it also went more into that as well.
Yes.
I felt it didn't really utilize it too much. I think there was only like 2 big story decisions where actually like you could influence someone with it. I forget. I think it was 2 or 3. I believe so.
It was something around 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 for sure. I remember. But you know, you don't really do much with it as I thought you were going to use it for. But again, it basically took my idea, like a more, what's the word? Subtle power.
Yes.
Yeah, a more subtle power. Because telekinesis in 2, which is way too bombastic. Like, that doesn't fit, like, the narrative storytelling at all. Like, this is basically mind reading, which was what I was suggesting when 2 was coming out. And I think they did a fantastic job, like, really reading the minds of people. And plus that added emotional thing, which I think they didn't do enough of, but... You know, that's neither here or there. But yeah, it was a fantastic sequel. I think this feels like the true Life is Strange 2, in my opinion. And I mean, I'll put it an A. What are you feeling on this one?
I mean, it's my second favorite game of the year. So
okay, I mean, I'll let you. If you want to put S, I don't mind. I have no objection to S. But...
S is saved for game of the year. You know what I'm saying? So
okay, I get you.
But yeah, Life is Strange True Colors. You know, the power being very subtle, I really do like that. And I hope that, like I said, if Deck 9 decide to make more Life is Strange games, if they get the green light to make more Life is Strange games, they keep that sort of idea of making the power subtle, make it much more attached to the character that you're playing as. Because, you know, Life is Strange 2, like you said, we shit on it a lot, but that's because we played it as it was coming out, and the release schedule for that game was so goddamn long. There was like months in between episodes, and like the moving location, and the characters just weren't as strong because you just constantly were moving, and the power wasn't attached to you, but instead it was attached to your little brother that you were trying to influence, etc., etc. So you know, with this game sort of bringing back to form, bringing it back to the roots of Life is Strange, maybe not as strong as the original game, mind you, but still bringing it back to a much more familiar territory for fans of the series. I'm very, very happy with True Colors, and I cannot wait to see what the future of this series has in store.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what Deck 9 has in store, since I think it's the best-selling Life is Strange game as well. Like, I think it did really well in terms of sales, so... I mean, I don't know as much as the first game, but I definitely think it's like it's doing really well for itself, and that's great, because I think Deck 9 knows what they're doing, which is good to see.
Yeah. So next game we got here is Mario Golf Super Rush. So I didn't finish this game, but I did play a lot of it when it initially came out.
You probably played more than I did. Because I did play like a lot of the single player as well, but I don't think enough. So
okay, but yeah, I mean, I think that this is like a pretty solid like Mario Golf game. I mean, like I've never played any of the other ones, so just jumping into this one, I think that this one was really, really fun in terms of like, you know, it's a Mario Golf game, and you know, there's like that sort of Mario spin on it with the locales, with the sort of like power ups and all of that other stuff, and sort of like getting to know the rules of golf as I was playing. I was like, oh, okay, so like that's what a par is. That's what this is, you know. So it is fun. Is it sort of like the Mario spin-off game of the Switch that I would recommend? Definitely not. But I think that if you're looking for a Mario Golf game, there is one on the Switch that is pretty goddamn good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I think. You know, I never played a Mario Golf game before, but I have played golf games before, so I kind of know what I was doing. Mostly like the mini golf like variety, you know, like golf for your friends and stuff. Like I really like those games. So this, I guess, was my true, like, you know, air quotes proper golf game where it's like you have like a field and you knock the ball and stuff, but all with the wacky Mario powers. I really like the special shots where each character has like a special move they could do. I like the Super Rush mode, where, you know, that's the whole advertising. Like you could like run towards your ball and like, you know, knock people over by charging at them and stuff. Like that's just a fun, you know, game mode in general, just because it adds, again, like that wacky Mario Party-esque like feeling to it. And yeah, I think the story mode was pretty fun too. Again, it feels more like more of a tutorial, because it's like teaching you a lot of different things and stuff. And obviously later on it gets pretty hard. You know, a lot of different things, like you have like specific things you have to do, but you know, like all the different obstacles to put in your way to, like, again, it feels like levels. They're like little puzzles, like to get your, you know, the ball in the hole and stuff like that. I know a lot of people clown on the game because apparently it's not as good as like the GameCube one or whatever. But again, we never played those because I thought that shit was boring as a kid, but now I like golf games because I'm weird. So maybe it is better. I don't know, but from what I played, I think it's like a B tier game. Like I think it's really
definitely.
fun. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's definitely
like regret it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely like a solid Mario spin-off game. It's not bad. It's not super outstanding, but it is definitely like a solid Mario Golf game if you wanted one. So,
all right. So this one is really good though. So Mario Party Superstars, right? It was that's what this one was called. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, this is Mario Party, but they just made it like how we wanted. So Mario Party 9, 10. And what was the other one? Super Mario Party. Like those all like took a pretty big deviation from the formula. So from Mario Party 1 through 8, it was like you have a board.
Super Mario Party sort of tried to steer it back in.
Yeah. Because Mario Party 1 through 8 is basically all the exact same thing, just with like new boards and items and stuff. Mario Party 9 and 10, you were in the car and like all together, and everyone hated that. Like, we had some fun with Mario Party 10 with the Bowser mode. Like that was kind of fun, but we all agreed like we'd rather just play Mario Party 2 or something. Super Mario Party was very close. They basically brought back the whole board, like how it was before. Mm-hmm. But each character had different character dice and stuff, and the boards were really small. Stars were like 10 coins. It still wasn't exactly what we wanted, but it was close. This basically is just Mario Party with online. With classic boards and with classic games, and it's really good because it's literally what we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to mess that up when you're literally copy and pasting stuff, and I think Nintendo's really the only company that can get away with that without having too many people complain about it and still have people buy it and still enjoy it because I know what I'm getting myself into. I know what I'm buying. I know what they're feeding me, but I'm still going to have fun with it because this is the first time Mario Party is online at launch. Obviously, like they updated Super Mario Party to have online because people knew that, look, they're adding online. That means the next Mario Party game for the Switch is going to have online, which it does. So, Superstars, it literally just takes the older boards from the N64 games and then all of the mini games from the entire Mario Party library and just throws them into this one game with online play. And I think the online play is a lot better than we expected. I mean, one of our friends, Kofi, he straight up DC'd from the game, but he was able to rejoin it, which was something that I had no idea that they were actually going to think about because I feel like Nintendo doesn't think about online like at all, even within 2021. But the fact that there was a rejoin feature after the turn is over, he can actually rejoin the game was something that I was kind of blown away by, which I really shouldn't be, because other games have this, but this is Nintendo we're talking about. So the fact that they were able to, have that feature and, the online itself, it was pretty stable for us personally. I think that, all of us have pretty good internet connection, so there wasn't anything too outlandish when it came to the online play. But the game itself, I mean, it's literally just Mario Party with the older boards in HD with the mini games and all of that other fun stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing else you could really go wrong here. I would definitely put this at the bottom of A, maybe high B, but I'm not exactly sure what you're thinking.
Honestly, I'll put in the bottom of A because like it was like really good. Like the online experience was like really good. Like I don't think we've ever really had major lag spikes. Like maybe you saw some lag, but it wasn't that bad. Again, like you said, like Kofi was able to just rejoin after the DC, which blew my mind. I'm like, holy shit! Like Nintendo knows how to do that. I love the stickers. Like the stickers are really fun to like spam. Like I it was something I didn't think about like when they first showed the game. Like, all right, whatever. But then I ended up spamming it like every other second. So I'm like, okay, this is pretty fun. It's basically what I wanted Mario Party from. Like, I wish it was like at least 1 or 2 more boards like to really round it out. But from what's there, like, I hope there's post-release content. Like I don't think there is because it would have been some by now, I think, and it would have said it. But I really hope there's like at least like 1 or 2 extra boards that come in like some content update because that would be really great. Or they could make a second one that has more of the GameCube boards or something. I'm not too familiar with the GameCube games as much, but I don't know. I want more of this Mario Party because this was great. Like, I had a lot of fun playing this game again. Like just all the Mario Party 2 boards and stuff. Like it's just really good. I'm glad Nintendo finally got what we wanted.
Yeah, it's really hard to mess it up when you're copy and pasting stuff. But moving on, we got Metroid Dread. Yeah. So I've only played the first 2 hours of it. So my first impressions of it is that this is a pretty good fucking game. And I can see why a lot of people are claiming that this is their game of the year because of how how much love and care that this game really has. And like I can tell like straight off the bat that like Mercury Steam really wanted to create like a really good Metroid game, and I think that their trial run with the 3DS game Samus Returns and then bringing them on for this game as like the next mainline series Metroid game was a genius idea, and I think that they did a really good job. The robots, I forget exactly what they're called, the sort of like random encounters that you run into.
Yeah.
Yes, the Emmys. They are fucking terrifying, and they are a super fun encounter, and they are very, very challenging. And I think that, you know, that sort of spices the game up a little bit and sort of changes the pace in terms of like how you're exploring in this game in a way. For like first time playthroughs anyways. I'm sure like speedrunners have found a way around that shit, but you know, me personally, every single time I'm like trying to like get to the next area and then one of the EMEs pops up, I'm like, oh shit, okay, now I kind of have to like explore faster because they're always going to be on my ass the entire time. And you know, you can't get out of their encounter, but it's a very, very, very tricky timing, which I think is fine. It can be a little frustrating and a little sort of annoying, but it is still like overall I had a good time with Metroid Dread, and maybe I'll jump back into it and hopefully finish it, but I'm not sure. I definitely have a history of starting Nintendo games and just not finishing them, but
I definitely think you should finish it. The game isn't too long either way. Like it only took me 100%, it only took me 10 hours, so like if you're just playing a game normally, it shouldn't take you that much longer. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. Like the game is fantastic. The Emmys, like I thought the Emmys were gonna be kind of like pace breakers because you had to like, oh yeah, be all stealthy now and stuff. But a lot of the later ones is basically just run. So you know, there's a lot of like really cool tense platforming sections and stuff. Like you have to utilize a lot of your power ups in unique ways. You basically just feel helpless every time one shows up because you can't really do much about it. Like if an enemy catches you, you have like a frame perfect thing you have to do to counter it, and if you do, you feel like great. But most of the time, you're gonna end up dying from them. Like most of the time, and it really kept the pace up. I actually thought, you know, like I said, I thought it would be pace breakers, but no, they did like the opposite. That was really good to see. The combat is really good. Like I don't know, like you know, in the early game, you know, you basically just shoot your gun like in 360 degrees and like, you know, do whatever. It's pretty basic Metroid stuff. But later on, with all the upgrades you get like this phase dash, which is basically just a dash, and it makes like boss fights feel so good. Like they could add like a lot more mechanics to boss fights because they know you have that dash. Like you know, a lot of people were complaining about the final boss being too hard. I thought it was fantastic. Like the final boss really shows like everything you learn up to that point, and like you have to utilize like everything against him, and it's really good. Like the bosses in general are like some of the best bosses I played this year. Like they were all really good. Like none of them felt unfair, which I feel like a lot of the other 2D Metroid games like had bosses that kind of just hit you a lot of the time. This game, like, it feels like everything is like avoidable, and anytime I get hit, it was kind of my fault to begin with. So yeah, like the boss design was fantastic. It was definitely my favorite part of the game. You know, just like the way the game looks just looks fantastic for a Switch game. Like the environments, like the foreground, or I guess the backgrounds look so good. Like there's so many things going on back there if you like actually like look at it. You know, the aliens and stuff moving around and stuff. It's really cool. And just like all the power-ups also feel really good. Like there's a lot of similar power-ups as well. Like, you know, you're gonna get like the space jump and the screw attack and stuff, but they have like a few new surprises as well. Yeah, overall I think the game is just fantastic. Like they took everything about Samus Returns on the 3DS and just refined it into Metroid Dread, and it really shows how like they know like how to make a Metroid game basically. Like Mercury Steam did a great job. And if we get a 2D Metroid game and a 3D Metroid game like relatively close together, you know, with Metroid Prime 4 coming out, I think that's just a dream for a lot of Metroid fans. I mean, I'll put an S, but because it's definitely a Game of the Year contender for me, but obviously my Game of the Year is right there. But it was definitely one that's up there. I have like two more. I think I'm gonna put an S, but or yeah, I was just looking at the list. All right.
So next we got is New World. This is the new MMO, and it had a lot of eyes on it. So
yeah,
Damian, what did you think about it?
All right, so I played this with our friend Jeffrey. You know, he was really into it. And basically, it's a new MMO by Amazon. This was been into the works for a very long time. You know, I'm pretty big into the MMO community, so I kind of have my ear to the ground with a lot of things they are announcing and stuff. And this was announced quite a while ago, and had a pretty interesting like development history where it started as a PvP game. Like it was still going to be an MMO. It was like this hardcore PvP game where it's like an open world PvP game where if you die, you lose all your gear and stuff, and it was like really hardcore and stuff. The niche community that likes that was very happy. It's like, oh, someone's making a game like that, like a big AAA game like that. That's cool. But as Amazon probably learned, like, oh, people don't like that. So they quickly shifted gears like a year before the game came out and made it more into like a typical MMO where it's like, PvE elements, questing, dungeons, and stuff like that. Like there's still PvP. Like PvP was still a big part of the game, but it's definitely like sandwiched between like a bunch of half-assed PvE content because they had to put that shit in there because people, a lot of people don't really like open world PvP. Like I'm one of those people. I'm definitely a PvE boy. Like I like quests, I like story, dungeons, like raid encounters and stuff like that. That's my wheelhouse. So I was gonna avoid New World until I heard about that. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. And Jeffrey really wanted me to play with him, so I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll play it. Why not? And after the first 20 levels, you kind of seen everything there is about the game. Like after I was like level 25 or something, I'm like, I felt no will to keep playing the game. And it seems that's where a lot of people drop off as well. Because basically all the quests are exactly the same. Like you just, kill something. And I know that's typical for MMOs, but MMOs have evolved beyond this point. Like, I know this is the meme when people think about MMO questing. But yeah, New World is basically that. Yeah, kill 10 boars, collect their assholes, like fucking travel to this location, talk to this guy. Like, it's very uninspired quests. The main quest line like doesn't really matter. Like there's some lore, but like none of it, like they don't really present it good at all. Like there's no cutscenes or anything. The dungeon, I did one dungeon and it was pretty fun, but again, it's mostly just like kill the trash mobs and like the bosses didn't really have too many mechanics. I know that's not really fair to say because it was the first dungeon. But it was just whatever. Like a lot of the PvE content you could tell was very half-assed and put into like the last second. Because a lot of the mobs you fight are just zombies. Like they're just literally just zombies. Like zombies and like ghosts, and that's it. And then you fight like wolves and bears and stuff. But it really isn't more interesting than that. Like that's really all they got for the PvE side of things. And PvP was already getting kind of weird because if you flagged for PvP, like a lot of people just gank you that were like way higher level because people just no life the game, which is to be expected. But then people just didn't want PvP, and then like the whole game kind of went to a downward spiral. And I actually watched a video talking about like all the things Amazon did to mess this game up. Like after I stopped playing, and yeah, it was a lot. The economy crashed multiple times. Like there was so many duplicating item glitches, like infinite. Like if you dragged the window around, you were invincible or something. Like there was some crazy like bugs going on. And yeah, basically the game is just kind of a mess right now. And the new update they did is not really fixing any of the issues people are having. But yeah, from what I played, it was like a C tier game. Like it was alright. It didn't really do like anything new. I don't really see the game continuing on with all the bad will it's been getting. But I guess we have to see. Most MMOs launch in pretty bad states anyway, as with most live service games, actually. So it could get better, but Amazon's just continually been messing up like over and over again with this game. It's really sad to see because the game definitely had some potential. But yeah, it looks like it might not reach that potential in time. But I guess we have to see because MMOs are very unpredictable to see where they go. But yeah, it was definitely like a C tier game when I was playing it. So I'll just base it off on that.
Understandable. Next we got here is NieR Replicant.
Yeah, version 1 point whatever.
Yeah, version 1 point and then a bunch of numbers.
Okay, so NieR. Okay, so this game should be like an A game, but it's like an S for me.
Oh my god.
I love this game. So I love NieR Automata. Like I thought it was a fantastic game. That game came out 2017. 2017 was a fantastic year. I thought the story was like really good. The combat, it was platinum combat. I felt a little like nerfed because it had to be sort of an action RPG as well, so it didn't feel as flashy, something like Bayonetta or whatever. But it was really good. This game should be ranked lower than Automata because I think the gameplay is a lot worse. Like the game, obviously when the game first came out, it came out like for the 360 in like 2010 or something, and this is like a remake of it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people harped on like the gameplay and stuff, and people didn't really understood the story as much. Like Yoko Taro's writing is very weird and how he does things, like it's very depressing. But like I think now that Automata came out, people could really appreciate the storytelling, and it's really good. Like I think the story definitely carries the game more than the gameplay because a game is good when I just keep thinking about it for like a month later. I'm like, yeah, that shit was fucking good. Like, oh man. And yeah, his writing style is just really good, because I think both Automata and this game both start relatively normal. Like it starts really mundane. Like it starts like just like a typical JRPG. Like there's typical little boy protagonist. Like, oh, I gotta like save my sister or whatever from the demon lord. But afterward, the game really takes a chip on its head and it becomes very, very depressing. And I love that shit. I always love like those more darker stories that don't really like they have like no chill, and they just keep going to like a downward spiral. But the game still has its like really good moments, like wholesome moments in it too. Like it's not all like depressing. Like there's some really good things in there as well. Some of my favorite parts of the game is like the game literally just, there's just text, like just read like this thing for like 20 minutes. I'm like, okay. And it was really good. Obviously they did that in the original game. It was that whole text adventure part of the game was supposed to be an actual level, but they had no money to do it. And they probably could have made it into an actual level in the remake, but I think that lost some of its charm if they would do that. So it's still like sort of like a text adventure thing. And some of the things they described there are very, very violent. So I don't know how they would have done that in the game. But yeah, it was really good. Like the music is just so fucking good. Like I don't know who the composer is for these games, but for Automata in this game, it's so good. I love the music in NieR. And yeah, so like basically the biggest downside is the gameplay itself, which is just okay. It's like pretty standard action RPG where like hack and slash, just hit things with a sword and you get some XP or whatever. It's not crazy. But everything else from the characters, from the story, is just like actual S tier. Like it's so good. Like I felt the same way about Automata, but I think this game, like, I think the story is just better. Like I honestly do think it's better than Automata's story. And Automata was already like really good in terms of storytelling. I just love anything Yoko Taro writes at this point. If he makes another NieR game or anything else, I would buy it because I really do like this dude's writing style. It's really good. And yeah, that's why it's S tier. Like. I can't really say much more about it because most of the things I want to praise about it is storytelling, and the gameplay is just kind of mid. But yeah, for me, it's definitely like an S tier game. It's not my game of the year, but it's definitely just up there. Just acknowledge it that it's there. I love it a lot, and yeah, that's why it's at S.
I hear that. No More Heroes 3. So you actually played all of the other No More Heroes games this year before you're jumping into this one. So how does 3 compare to the other ones?
So yeah, 3, again, this is like S tier in my heart, but it's not. Like this game, this is my thing I can't really forgive it for being like really wacky and stuff. But in terms of in comparison to the other No More Hero games, I do think it is the best. I think the boss fights are like the best in this game. I think the combat is definitely the best in this game as well. Basically think of like how the other No More Hero games played, but you have these Death Glove skills where you could like do like 4 different abilities and really spices up combat. The enemy variety is a lot better as well since you're like fighting aliens in this game. So like the enemies aren't just like, oh, just dude with gun or dude with sword. Now it's like different weird aliens you have to fight. And I think that adds a lot more to the combat encounters as well. And I think the biggest weakness of this game is it's on Switch because the game runs like absolute garbage. So, but when you're in combat encounters, it runs fine. It's like a beautiful 60 FPS because like the game like it kind of encloses you in an arena to fight bosses or regular enemies because the game doesn't have actual levels in this game. If you remember, No More Heroes 1 and 2, there's like actual levels where you go through, like you fight a bunch of people, then you get up to the end of the level, then you fight the boss. In this game, it's just you fight the boss and that's it. Like that's kind of lame about this game. But I think that it makes that up by just having really good combat. And I think the performance like would have just tanked if it was having actual levels. But when you're in the actual open world, which is the part everyone hated about No More Heroes 1, well, there's an open world in this game, but it's like 5 different open world areas that are all bland and all run like shit. Like, I don't know why they did that. I feel like Suda51 just added that to troll on people that hated the open world in the first game. But yeah, it definitely is the weakest part of the game. Again, the best part of the game is definitely the combat and the story because of how stupid it is. Like, the game is ridiculous. It made me laugh so many times because of how ridiculous it gets. Like, nothing makes sense. Like, things just happen. Like, I played Travis Strikes Again to, like, see if I was missing something after I was, like, halfway through this game. And, yeah, that game kind of helps a bit, but things just happen in this game, and you kind of just have to accept it, and it's really good. Like, I had so much fun playing this game because the game's main focus is just you having fun. Like, the story is ridiculous and funny. The voice acting is great. Like, if you don't play this game with the dub, you're weird. Because, like, I can hear Travis without, like, his English voice actor. Like, that's just, he loves that character. And it really shows in this game as well. And, yeah, I definitely think the weakest part of the game is, like, all the side stuff. Like, the open world stuff, the little side jobs you could do. Again, those were the weakest part about the other No More Hero games, and that doesn't really change with this game either. So, yeah, I'll give it B. I think it's like high B for me. I think all the technical issues and all the mistakes that I could have learned from the other games, it just didn't. Even though the game is like fantastic, I think any fan of No More Heroes probably already played it or is gonna buy it at some point. Just play it. Especially the ending. The ending bit is insane. Like it's just so nutty. Like I don't know what the hell is going on anymore. But yeah, I definitely think the game is a lot of fun. The combat's great. Story is great. Just like all the side stuff still isn't very good from the other No More Hero games, but I guess that's to be expected at that point. But yeah, really good game.
All right, so next we have is Persona 5 Strikers. So this is a spin-off, right?
Yeah, so this is a spin-off of Persona. Well, yeah, it's a spin-off of Persona 5. It's basically like a pseudo-sequel to 5 because it takes place after the fact. And it's basically a Musou game, which is, like the Hyrule Warriors, the Warrior games, basically. It's basically that. But it does not feel the same way as Hyrule Warriors does. Like, in those games, you fight a bunch of different enemies. You take points in the map and stuff, When I heard that a Warriors game was being made from Strikers, I mean, I was excited, or from Persona, I was excited because, I love Persona and I love Warriors games, but I'm like, how does that really fit? Because especially with the theme of Persona 5 being the Phantom Thieves, is not really like, you're supposed to be sneaky. You're not supposed to be killing a bunch of enemies all at once. Basically, the game just became an action RPG instead. Like, it still has that same combat where you could string light and heavy attacks and do your Persona moves and stuff, like just like how any other Musou game works. Except now it's a lot like there's not as many enemies on screen. Like there's times where you're gonna have to fight a bunch of enemies and stuff, and it becomes like a Musou game. But for the most part, just like here's just Persona as an action RPG, and it's really good. I think the problem with a lot of Persona spin-offs is like a lot of the characters become flannerized. Like they just like, oh, this character had one thing they did in the base game, but didn't really get into that. It's just like a funny little quirk they had. And the spin-off games, like this is all the character thinks about now. I think Strikers really gets away from that. Like the writing feels basically as good as the base game did. And it really it's just really good. They gave a lot of character development to characters that I felt didn't get any in the base game. Like Haru, which is one of your party members, basically she didn't get jack shit in the base game. She joins you after something happens, and then like that's it. Like I feel like she got really gypped in the base game. Even in Royal, where they could have fixed some of that stuff, it just didn't. Strikers give her a nice character arc, and it feels really good to have that for her. And yeah, some characters got more fleshed out, and I think the main story in the game itself was really good as well. I really like the new side characters they added with Sophia and I forgot the other dude's name. He was like this police guy. He was really good as well. Like both of those characters were like a lot better written than I thought they were gonna be. And I don't know, the game was just like really good for a spin-off. The game didn't, every time I kept playing through the game, I'm like, the game didn't need to go this hard. It's just a spin-off. But it did. It really went so hard. The music is some of my favorite out of any of the Persona games. Like the battle theme is so fucking good. I love it so much. And again, if Persona was to go action combat, I would love to see them iterate on this because I think this is a great formula to like have an action-based combat system that's turn-based. And yeah, for me, it's gonna be the top of A tier because I think the game still isn't like Persona and stuff. Like, it still has some quirks that Warrior games has and stuff. So I can't really give it S, but it was a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. When the game ended in like 40 hours, I'm like, huh? Where's the rest of it? Because Persona games are always like over 100 hours. So I was like, where was the rest of my game? But the game was really good. I really do hope they do more of these spin-offs with like Persona 6 and stuff because I think like the Warriors format actually works really well for the Persona games. So yeah, very good game. I highly recommend it if you have played Persona and want more of it because it's basically a sequel. Then yeah, just buy it. It's really good.
All right, so next we have is Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. This is the remake of the fourth generation. So yeah, and I believe this one wasn't done by Game Freak, right?
It's not. It's made by what were they called? Like Ilka, Lirka? I don't know. The people that made Pokemon Home. So yeah, put that shit in C tier. So Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. It's basically advertised as a 1-to-1 remake of Diamond and Pearl. And they weren't lying. It's just Diamond and Pearl. Like everything is the same. Levels are the same. Pokemon like in their routes are the same. There's no gimmick. There's no Dynamaxing. There's no Mega Evolution. There's no Z moves. It's basically as pure as you could get of a remake. And I don't know how I like that. I think the biggest point of contention is the art style. Mm-hmm. At first I didn't like it. Then it kind of grew on me. But some parts still don't look good. Like, there's a lot of moments when the characters are talking and they like zoom into the like chibi face, but it's like soulless, right? Like, it's not meant to be look up that close. I don't know why they keep doing that, but it's just zoom in on like Cynthia's face and it's just like blankly looking at you. Like, I don't know why. Like, it doesn't look good. Like when you zoom in like that far in. Yeah, some of the environments look good. Like I think Jubilife City looks really good, which is like the first major city in the game. But like low Twin Leaf, I forgot what it was called in this game. Like your starting town looks kind of like shit. Like I think it feels very inconsistent. The graphics do feel very inconsistent. I think the lack of outlines. I don't know why Game Freak keeps. I know it's not made by Game Freak, but you know what I mean. I don't know why they keep not having outlines on everyone. Like, just embrace the anime art style. Like, I feel like Pokemon always wants to be more realistic, but they don't have the talent to make it look realistic. So just aim for the more anime angle. I don't know why they go for like this weird realistic looking thing. I know this is more chibi, but you know what I'm talking about. Like just give it outlines. It will look so much better with outlines. And yeah, basically, I mean, it's just Diamond and Pearl. Like, there's not much to say. Like, I love Diamond and Pearl, but if it does feel like a lesser version of those games, like, I'd rather just play Platinum at this point. Because Platinum, like, there's not too much different from this and Platinum. Like, the other remakes felt warranted because they added the physical special split. They added fairy ties. I know this game also added fairy ties, but, you know, they added a lot more quality of life that those older games didn't have. You know, by the time Pokemon reached Gen 4, the battle system was basically perfected. Like, they added everything they wanted to do. So remakes kind of felt redundant. And at that point, you should have just gone big or go home, right? You should have made like a full 3D game. Like, you could explore the world in 3D and stuff. And like having like a straight remake doesn't feel as exciting because, you know, a lot of quality of life stuff was very in Gen 4. Like, there was no real reason for this to be a one-to-one remake besides, hey, I could play Diamond and Pearl on my Switch now. Like, I guess that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. If you have like Platinum like on your DS, just play that, honestly. Like, there's no real reason to play this version instead. There's the Grand Underground, which like expands on the Underground, which is cool. Like, there's little Pokemon dens down there now that you can catch some Pokemon from the National Index. Like, that's pretty cool. The Pokemon contest, I think they revamped, but some people hated that, so I can't really comment on that. And just the amount of content they added is just the same as Diamond and Pearl. So if you have Platinum, just play that instead. So yeah, again, if you haven't played Gen 4, then I guess you could buy it. But yeah, for the most part, it's probably the worst remake they've done, if I'm gonna be honest. It just feels very lazy, very like, it felt like no money was put into it. And it just exists. So if you want to play it, if you want to play Gen 4, if you're in a Pokemon mood, play it. Yeah, but for me, it was pretty disappointing.
All right, we got another Pokemon game here, Pokemon Unite. So as the League of Legends player here, you know, having a MOBA with Pokemon in it sounded pretty cool. And honestly, from what I played of it for like the first week, I think in total I probably put like 5 to 6 hours into it, at most. It's pretty fun. I think that for a very kiddie-like sort of like MOBA, if someone wants to get into the genre with this one, because games are maxed out at 10 minutes. The number of characters that you can play as is pretty good. I think that because this is Pokemon we're talking about here, they can literally pull from hundreds of thousands of characters. But I think the characters that they started off with was actually like pretty good. You have some new Pokemon, some old Pokemon, and it's a nice mix. And the map itself, like, it's pretty basic. There's 2 lanes. There's a jungle, there's neutral monsters, there's like a Baron, there's like a Herald sort of thing. And the objective is to just score in these like little circle bins, or like the towers, if you will. And yeah, it's pretty basic. It's not that hard to really sort of understand, and I think that if you played any other MOBA before this one, you'll probably get right into it like pretty easily. But you know, if you never played a MOBA, this is definitely one to start off with. Definitely don't start with League, just because the League of Legends is just such a big ass game, and there's so many fucking characters, and there's so many rules and so many things. Like,
and it's long. The game's long.
Yeah. Games can be very, very long, especially if you have 10 new players playing in one game. Like, those games could go up to an hour, I would imagine. But yeah, you know, Pokemon Unite, it's a nice little, you know, free to play Pokemon MOBA game that's, you know, worth trying out, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I basically feel the same way. You know, I didn't play a MOBA in so long because I was kind of just burnt out from the genre after playing like a bunch of League when, you know, I was playing League. And I think the biggest thing for this game that I like is the 10-minute timer. Like, I think games only being 10 minutes just makes it so much more like easy to get into. Like, I kind of like my content to be in bite sizes now. Like, even though I play like MMOs as like sort of my main life service type game, you know, I like doing a dungeon that's maybe like 20 minutes max or something. Like, I like having like a set like time how long something is going to take, because you could just enjoy that content and then like leave. You know what I mean? With League, I feel like you have to like shoulder some things for like 30, 40 plus minutes, and like I'm like, I really don't want to deal with that, especially if the, you know, everyone's being all toxic. If you're doing bad, you know, it could just feel really draining. And if people don't want to surrender at 20, you know, it's just like, what the fuck, man? But yeah, with Pokemon Unite, it's very fast-paced games. You know, I think the Pokemon are pretty fun to play as. You know, I don't know how well like the bouncing or things are. You know, it's probably is borked because it's like Tencent, and I don't know how much they actually like, care. I saw they were selling like $40 skins or something, so that's also like pretty yikes. And they don't look that much better. Like, you know, at least with League, when you get like an ultimate skin, like it looks pretty sick. And I think they're only like $20, right? I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously the game has like a lot of monetization issues. It's pretty icky with its monetization, but its core gameplay is really fun. Like I think it's like a really fun MOBA to get into. Even if it's not even just for like a kid MOBA. Like I think if you just want a casual MOBA, this is great. Like I don't know how Wild Rift is, but if it's like this, that would be pretty cool. I don't think it's like this. Like I think it's like 20 minutes max for a game, which is also fine. But like, I don't know. I just like the idea of like shorter term MOBAs. Like I think that's pretty cool. I don't know, but where would you put it?
I would definitely put it at the bottom of B.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So next one we got here is Psychonauts 2. So as Damian is the Psychonauts fanboy, praise the game.
Okay, so this is like, if Endwalker doesn't count because it's like an expansion, this is my game of the year, so it would be S. Yeah, it's really good. Basically, think of Psychonauts 1, which is basically like this wacky platformer that like it basically a lot of emphasis on story, and like because it was made by Double Fine. And Double Fine made a lot of those point-and-click adventure games. So basically think of that, but as a platformer with those elements in there. I think 2 does a little less with the whole point-and-click adventure type things, but it is a lot, you know, it has a lot of story and stuff to it. And it's really good. Like I think as a sequel to Psychonauts 1, it basically felt like it never left. Like all the voice actors sound exactly the same. The gameplay feels better than the first game, which is good because I think a lot of people had issues with the gameplay with the first game because it did feel a little floaty and not as tight. I think 2, again, it's not like the best platformer in terms of control. Like I think like Mario or Ratchet, like I think they feel better in terms of gameplay, but it's still good. Like I think it's still good. The thing that really carries its gameplay is its level design. Like its level design is some of the most creative things I've ever played in a platformer. Like the things you could do with just like the craziness with someone's mind and sort of theme a level like that. So for instance, the first level you go into someone's mind that's like a doctor, and then you kind of mess up their mind so they have a gambling addiction. So it kind of combines a casino and hospital together, and it just makes them for some really cool level design and like things like that. So just think of it like that, but it gets like wackier as the game goes on. And then the first game was really strong with that too, but I think the second game adds that plus tighter controls, and the gameplay just gets like so much better. The story is just a perfect continuation from the first game. Like you learn a lot more about like the Psychonauts themselves and stuff. All the inner workings and stuff. Like I think it just ended the story really well. Like I feel like if they wanted to do a third game, they definitely could because they left it open. But it wasn't like the first game, which just ends in a straight up cliffhanger, and then I need to wait until like 2021 to like see the ending to it. That was painful. But yeah, now that I have like a good conclusion to that story, and like they could do more with the game, I'm very satisfied. Like the story was very satisfying, very funny. You know, the humor is still really good as the first game was. I think the first game was a little funnier because it's a little edgier with its humor, but this game feels a little more sincere. You know, has a little more heart to it than the first game did. The first game was very cynical about a lot of things. But yeah, I thought the story was fantastic, and the gameplay again is just so much better than the first game, and the level design is just as creative as the first game as well. So yeah, with all that in mind, it's just a fantastic platformer. Like if you haven't played this game, like I really suggest you play the first game and this game, you know, just back to back because they're just really good. And yeah, it definitely deserved a fucking game of the year nomination or game of the year award. They didn't win anything. I was so mad. I'm like, why does the game? It didn't win anything. Like I forgot what won game direction. Deathloop won game direction, which is supposed to be like super creative level designs and stuff. Like Psychonauts 2 is literally that. I don't know why it didn't win that. But yeah, anyway, Psychonauts 2 is just a fantastic platformer. You know, it's something we don't really see nowadays. AAA 3D platformers. This year was a pretty big exception. It was like a lot of them. But Psychonauts 2 definitely stands above the rest just because I think the story is really good and the level design, which I think is honestly think level design is more important to a platformer than super tight, because obviously controls are very important, but I think having interesting levels to explore is what makes me remember like these things. You know what I mean? Especially like not tropey level design. Like, oh, here's the forest level, here's the lava level. Like, nah, there's some weird shit in Psychonauts, and I think they really get into that with 2 as well. Like, there's like a bowling alley, but it's like they're made of germs. Like, it's like a city. Like, it's fucking weird, man. Like, and I love it. So yeah, Psychonauts 2, definitely my game of the year. If Endwalker, if you don't want to count Endwalker as an expansion, then I'll give you Psychonauts 2. That's basically how I do. They're both my game of the year, so fuck you.
All right, so next game we got here, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I mean, this is my personal game of the year, so I'm gonna just throw it in S tier now.
I'm gonna put an S tier.
But Ratchet and Clank is a series that you introduced me to back in like 2009 or whatever, and yeah, this is a platformer series that I have been loving since then, and the fact that Insomniac Games has been creating these games for so long, and that we get a new one this year is really cool. And they were able to sort of create a new story with a alternate dimension Ratchet and Rivet, and her character is just so much fun, much more fun than she has any right to be, honestly. I think that the fact that they were able to characterize Rivet so much made this game so well loved by the community of PlayStation and the Ratchet and Clank fan base as well. Like, she is a fantastic character, and I hope that they use her more within future games, just because I feel like that this could be the start of a new trilogy if they wanted to, with Rivet and Ratchet, and go on space adventures and all of that other stuff. And then from the gameplay perspective, I mean, literally every single time Insomniac Games touches this series again, like, they are able to create another much more polished version of their last game, and that's no different here. The new dash mechanic that Ratchet and Rivet have makes platforming and combat feel a little bit more playful, just because you have another movement option, and the fact that Insomniac Games was able to add more stuff on top of the gameplay after so many years of making these games is just awesome to see. And the presentation, like, don't even get me started with the PlayStation 5 presentation. Like, 100%, this game could not function on any of the previous console generations. The PS4, no. Like, 100% no. The load times would be insane, just because of what they wanted to do, from going from one area to another instantaneously. The graphics, like, how the game actually looks is like mind-blowing for like a game like this one. It's a fucking platformer with furry characters, and it has no right to look as good as it does. There's ray tracing, there's 60 FPS. Like, a lot of what this game brings to the table is to show that why this game is a PS5 exclusive, because this game could not run on any other console generation before it. So Ratchet and Clank is just my game of the year, because it just does so many things so well, and this is the culmination of everything that sort of Insomniac Games has done with the Ratchet and Clank series. Maybe not story-wise. The story is pretty simple, all things considered, despite them bringing in a alternate version of Ratchet. They wanted this game to be the sort of entry point for a lot of people for the Ratchet and Clank series, so they kept the story kind of simple. But if you know the Ratchet and Clank games, you will see certain characters, you will see certain hints and Easter eggs and things like that you will be like, hey, I know Sid McMarks from the original PS2 games, something like that. But for the most part, the story is pretty simple, which is why it's not my favorite Ratchet and Clank game, but it does do a lot of things well. I will say that.
Yeah, I mean, I basically agree with everything. Like, obviously, I'm the Ratchet and Clank simp. It was like literally like my earliest memories of playing either Pokemon or Ratchet and Clank 1. So like, obviously, like I love this series to death, which is kind of weird as not my game of the year, just because there's like, I guess, other games that came out that I just they're really fucking good. But yeah, Ratchet is definitely the third in line for me in terms of game of the year. Like you said, presentation, graphics, like actually like unreal. Like I don't keep saying this, but like it really is like the best looking game like I've ever seen. Like, it's so goddamn good looking. Like, it looks like a Pixar movie for real. I know that's a meme with the Ratchet and Clank games, but like they actually do look like, now it's like scary Pixar levels, like how good this game looks. But like you said, I can't really say it's my favorite Ratchet and Clank game. I still think Crack in Time is still my favorite one, just because I think that game did everything right. Like, that game did the gameplay right. It did like the story really well. The game just felt big. Like, you could explore all the different moons in space. You could just fly in space. Like, there's just so much in that game that I wish was in Rift Apart, but just isn't. Like, Rift Apart is basically the same length as Crack in Time, but still feels smaller in some ways. Like, it's kind of weird, just because the game is, you just select your planet, and there's not too many planets in this game either. They're bigger, but they're not too many. and it kind of can just feel smaller than Crack in Time. And again, the story is very simple. You know, like it's just more like introducing Vivid, and it really feels like a start of a new trilogy. Like it feels like, okay, this feels like Tools of Destruction, like setup. Like we're just setting things up. Like here's a new character. That I honestly like more than Ratchet at this point. Like I think Vivid's really good, and I wish like if the next thing was just Vivid, I would just play it no problem. But I'm not too sure how that's gonna work because Insomniac is also making the Wolverine game and Spider-Man 2. So I think we won't see another Ratchet and Clank game for quite a while. I hope I'm kind of wrong on that. But I guess we have to wait and see for that. But in terms of gameplay, I think this is the best gameplay Ratchet has ever had. The dash adds a lot to combat. Like they could add a lot more bullets and stuff. Like I played the game twice. So, I played on normal. Oh, I played it my first run through and then challenge mode. I wanted to play it one more time before this video or before this podcast, but I didn't have time to. But yeah, I think the gameplay wise is just so good. Like it's just like the gunplay just feels way better. Like the haptic feedback, like it doesn't add like a whole lot, but it adds enough to make each weapon feel pretty different from each other. The dash again just adds a lot to the combat. The hover boots being back, I love the hover boots. They're so good. I'm really glad they're in this game as a permanent thing now. The rift tether is really fun to like traverse through the battlefield and get to new vantage points and stuff. My only issue with the gameplay is I think there is too much combat. Like I think the game definitely suffers the same issues Ratchet and Clank 3 has, where it's like, okay, the game is basically all combat. Like there's basically no platforming. Like you do some platforming, but it's like not enough, I think. And Ratchet and Clank 3 had the same exact issue where it was like, okay, there's a ton of combat and like no platforming. I think that does take away from it. I think Crack in Time had a better balance of that. I think Tools of Destruction has had a better balance of like platforming and combat that this game didn't really achieve. And no gadgets either. There was like no gadgets in this game. Like there was no like hydro displacer or no like other thing. Like, it was really only like a swing shot, and that's it. I think. I think the game definitely could have added to have like some puzzle segments as well. Like I love like the fucking Geltonium from like Tools of Destruction. That shit was cool. It was a nice break of combat, and you just had like some platforming and stuff. Like I appreciated the Clank segments and the hacking minigame, but again, the hacking minigame was more shooting. So yeah, it was definitely like a lot of shooting. I think the game, the thing I love about Ratchet is the balance between platforming and like a third-person shooter. I think this game definitely leans more into the third-person shooter a little too much. I think it had like a little more diversity with its platforming and shooting. I think it would have been a lot better in terms of my Ratchet tier list, but it's still like number like 2 for me probably. But yeah, but besides that, it's a fantastic game. I really can't wait to see what's next for the Ratchet and Clank games. Hopefully they could close out this story arc with the freaking Lombax dimension. Please just end it. It's been going on since 2007. Just end it, please. So yeah, I'm very excited to see where it goes from there. Insomniac really showed that they still care a lot about Ratchet and Clank. Like they put a lot of time and effort into this game, and I could tell. I'm definitely gonna do another playthrough at some point next year because I really do want to play the game again. And yeah, I just love it. I mean, that's that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone listening to it. I fucking love Ratchet and Clank. So yeah, obviously I'm gonna like it.
All right, so next we have is Returnal. So this is, from my understanding, a sort of like AAA sort of roguelike game, or
yeah, it's a AAA roguelike bullet hell game basically. So this game is really unique in terms of that setting, right? Because I don't think we have too many AAA roguelites like ever. And the reason for that is people get turned off from it. Like I think there's actually a statistic on a PS5 subreddit where it's like, I think Returnal was the least finished game of 2021, and that doesn't surprise me at all because the game is hard. It's a hard game, and a lot of people aren't used to the roguelike concept. Like when the game came out, I saw threads on our games and stuff saying like, this game is too hard. Like, oh, I die and get sent back to the beginning, trash game. Things like that. People don't really understand the genre still, which is pretty surprising because I think roguelites are pretty like popular in terms of the indie game sphere. But I guess people that only play AAA games just aren't used to that concept. But as someone who's like pretty like well versed in roguelites and in bullet hells, the game really wasn't that hard for me. I was able to beat the game pretty fine. It only took me 15 hours to beat the whole game, and some people took like 15 hours to beat the first boss. So yeah, I think in terms of like skill level, like if you played like things like Gungeon or Isaac, you're gonna feel right at home. I think the thing that makes the game harder than those games is the fact that it's 3D, right? Like I'm not used to looking behind my back for a shit ton of bullets coming at me. Like in Gungeon and Isaac, I could see everything on my screen and I could dodge accordingly. In this game, you really have to have like more spatial awareness, and that's awesome. Like I think that's a really cool aspect that I've really had to experience in a bullet hell or in a roguelike before, and it's really cool. And the game really gets enhanced by its like 3D audio. Like it really uses that feature of the PS5 really well, because if you hear something in the back of you, like you hear enemy charging up an attack, you can like dash out of the way and stuff, and it really adds a whole lot to the game. Like if you're gonna play this game, I say definitely wear headphones or something, because it really does add a lot to the combat that makes it a lot better. But yeah, in terms of as a roguelite though, I do think it's a little weak. Like I think the gameplay as just a 3D bullet hell, it's fantastic, but its roguelite elements do feel weak. Like I think there's not enough things to unlock. I think a lot of the weapons do feel different, but a lot of like the sort of like little items, like their passive bonuses aren't that crazy. It's like, oh, you get more health, or you get like some other minor upgrade. Like nothing feels too wacky, like something like Isaac or Gungeon, where you're getting like a bunch of different crazy things in a run, and that really changes your build. Like Returnal doesn't really reach that same point, which makes sense because it's like a AAA roguelike, so I guess it can't really devote too many assets to make things like as crazy as those other games can. So as such, I'll put it on the top of B. I think it's gonna get an expansion at some point, and if they could add more items and build diversity, I think it could be like an A tier game. I still think it's worth buying if you have nothing else on your PS5 to play and you're down for a really hard like roguelite bullet hell. I definitely think it's worth it. I really didn't regret my time with it. It was really good. But if they make a sequel or expansion, I think they could definitely iterate more on top of it, which is fair. Like, Isaac didn't start out perfect. It became a perfect game with more expansions and stuff. And I think Returnal could kind of reach that same point if they either do a sequel or an expansion. I think it could really get up there in terms of my favorite roguelites. But as of right now, it's pretty good.
All right, so next game we got here is Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game Complete Edition. So this is infamously known as the game that was taken off of the Xbox Live Arcade and PSN stores, and a lot of people were pretty much reminiscing about this game for many, many years since then. And now we have a official re-release of the game on PC, current gen consoles, and then a physical version on limited run games. So yeah, I mean, if you played this game back then, you're pretty much playing the same game that this one is. It literally just has all of the DLC and maybe some, I guess, shinier graphics, if you will. It's a 16 or 32-bit, whatever. It's a retro style beat 'em up game, and it's pretty good. I think that the music is definitely the best sort of like chiptune music that I have listened to personally. And the gameplay itself, I mean, it's a beat 'em up. It is rather grindy for a beat 'em up because it does have sort of like RPG like elements where like Scott levels up and like you have to like buy items and stuff like that. But I think that just plays into the sort of like, I guess, world that Scott Pilgrim is in, kind of, where it's sort of like video gamey but not really, kind of. I'm not entirely sure. Right. But yeah, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game. If you haven't played it like at all, you should definitely give it a shot. Even if you're not into beat 'em ups, I think that this is definitely one worth checking out and trying out because this is one of the best in its genre.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I love beat 'em up games. I'm glad they're sort of coming back. Like Street Fighter 4, River City Girls was really good. But in my heart, I'm like, where's Scott Pilgrim? Like, I wish that game was back. And when this was announced, I lost my shit. I'm like, hell yeah! And I play the game again, and it's just as good as I remembered. Even as grindy as it is, because you do need to grind a bit to get like better moves and buy like health stuff. Like I found myself having to go back a bit because the game is pretty hard, and that didn't really change. But yeah, the game is still fantastic. Like the sprite work is really good. The music is like fantastic. Bosses are really fun. It's basically everything you can ask for in a 2D beat 'em up, and all the reverence it's gotten over the years is because it's really that good. And I'm really glad people could see why it's so good because people could buy it. And both me and Travis bought the freaking limited run edition because we're not letting this game go this time. See, I played it on Switch and I have it on PS5 now. I didn't actually like put it in the disc yet. I need to like play it on there so I get like my trophies and stuff. But yeah, the game is fantastic. I mean, I think it's like, wait, where would you put it?
Probably bottom A.
Yeah, I'll put A as well. I'll put it above Mario Party.
True.
All right.
But yeah, next game we got here is Shin Megami Tensei 5.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that this is better than Pokemon.
Yeah. Okay. So I was playing this at the same time as Pokemon, right? So I was like switching off between them. I was like playing a bunch of SMT, then I switched to Pokemon. Because SMT is pretty hard. So yeah, when I switched back to Pokemon, I'm just like, man, this game really just feel like shitty SMT now, huh? And I can explain why. So SMT, if you didn't know, this is like basically the father of Persona. So Persona is basically a spinoff that became its own thing. And the combat basically works the same way. You have your main character, And then you can have up to 3 different demons on you at one time, and they're basically party members like in any other RPG. Like they're just on the battlefield at the same time. And how the game works is it has something called the press turn system, where you have your 4 turns, but if you pass your turn, you get an extra turn. If you hit an enemy weakness, you get an extra turn. If you get a crit, you get an extra turn, and I think that's it. But it can also work by removing turns from you. So if you miss a turn, you lose. No, I'm sorry. If you miss an attack, you lose a turn. If you hit enemies like resistance, you also get negated a turn. So it's really punishing. And the enemy could also use that system. So if the enemy hits your weakness, they get a bonus turn. But also, and if they crit as well. So yeah, the game works in that same sort of system. So it's like pretty punishing if you don't know what you're doing. Like you could easily get killed in one turn if you don't have the right weaknesses covered and stuff. But the thing that really gives you that advantage is like fusing demons and stuff. So you could like fuse different demons like in Persona, and you could basically make a perfect team. So most of the time, when I fight a boss, I would just basically wipe to it immediately because I didn't know what it was weak to or anything. So then I go to the sort of like World of Shadows where you could like fuse different demons and stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a bunch of demons that are resistant to this dude's weakness. I could get a bunch of abilities that he's weak to. So you craft a perfect team for that boss, you kill it, and then you feel great. Because like, not only are you playing strategically in the battle, you also have to think outside of the battle and how you're going to fuse demons to be good against that boss fight. With Pokemon, you just monkey brain the whole way through the game. Like you don't really have to think about anything. You give one Pokemon a bunch of type coverage. Like, oh, I'm gonna get a Fernape. I'm gonna give him like flamethrower and like rock smash and whatever. And you can just beat anything, right? Because you just have so many type coverages. In SMT, it doesn't work like that. Like each demon you make is really specialized for that one thing. Like, oh, this demon is only good at fire attacks and it can't do ice attacks. So you have to make sure what you're using it for is for like fire damage and stuff. And it just adds a whole layer of complexity that's really goddamn satisfying. And even later on, the game, SMT has a reputation of being really hard. And I played it on normal. I didn't play it on hard because I'm not a maniac. But yeah, I played it on normal, and I thought the balancing was just right. Like, I thought all the bosses felt very fair. There was very few times I felt I died because of bullshit. Obviously, there's going to be luck with crits and stuff. But if I built all my demons right, I built my right team like the way I wanted to, I was able to win every single time. And that's a really good feeling to have. I think its weakest point is its story. The story is basically non-existent. Like, there's some things in there, but you're basically playing this game for the gameplay. And I think the gameplay is really good. It's some of the best turn-based combat I have played, and some of the best sort of like, I guess, a monster raising type RPG I played. Like, it definitely kicks the shit out of Pokemon. So for me, I'll put an A tier. I'll put it in the middle of It Takes Two and Guardians. Yeah.
Sounds about right. All right, so next we got here Sonic Colors Ultimate. So I'm gonna just straight up and say that this shit C.
I was gonna say C, yeah.
This shit C. Unfortunately, the Sonic Colors Ultimate, when it came out, it was just littered with bugs. It felt really, really rushed, and Sonic games are being rushed out. It's very iconic, so when it happens, it's very noticeable, obviously. But with the bugs and glitches this game was sort of producing on social media, it was crazy. Some of them were even fake because someone was like playing it on like an emulator, and like they weren't disclosing that it was the emulator, so like it was kind of hard to determine what was real and what was fake. And some people were like actually panicking that were like posting glitches from their actual console, like, wait, people thinking that like I faked this shit, and then they had to like pull up like their Switch replays and all that. Anyways, Sonic Colors Ultimate, this is a game that I always loved. It's always regarded as like one of the better 3D Sonic games, if you will. And then I was like, maybe one day I should replay Sonic Colors. And then Sonic Colors Ultimate was announced, and I was like, you know what, this is my perfect opportunity to do so. So I played it, and it wasn't as good as I remember it, but that might just be because of the nostalgic goggles that I had on. There's definitely a lot more platforming than I remembered. There's not as much of like the high speed boosting sort of stuff that I came to love with this sort of like boost formula style of gameplay with Sonic. But still, like, the game's fun. I still enjoyed it despite, some of the glitches I ran into and some of the bugs and all of that other stuff. The game does look good for a PS4/PS5 game if you played on the PS5. The sort of like HD upgrades are there, definitely. But in some cutscenes and some parts of the game, it feels like a higher res Wii game, which is what it is, which is unfortunate to see. And then they also made some like little changes here and there. So like the sort of like tail saves instead of like the 1-ups, that's kind of like whatever to me, in my opinion. I don't know why there wasn't like a sort of like thing to sort of select from the normal lives to like the tail saves, because the tail saves, it doesn't even bring you back to the like checkpoint. It literally just brings you back into the level. So like checkpoints kind of become useless in a sense.
You don't lose your score either. So getting S rank is easy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then another thing was the Jade Ghost power. I don't know why they fucking added this shit, because they obviously did not test it at all. It literally soft locked me out of one of the levels, and I had to restart the whole thing. And I was like, all right, every single time I get this fucking power, I'm not using it, because like it's actually gonna break the game. But yeah, you know, Sonic Colors Ultimate, it could have been better. I still had fun with it, which is why it's not in like D or F. But like, you know, come on, be better, Sonic. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I basically agree with everything. Like with the Jade Ghost, I also got soft locks. I was able to get out of it. I forgot how. I like clipped through the like floor or something. But yeah, the Jade Ghost is definitely not programmed right, because obviously it wasn't in the base game, and they try to like, I think they hide some red rings around like to like use the Jade Ghost, but it just didn't work out well. Obviously, there was a lot of like graphical issues and stuff. Like, the Switch version just is kind of just shit, right? Like we both played on PS5, so we don't really we can't really comment on the Switch version. But yeah, in terms of like the game itself, like just Sonic Colors, like I still like it a lot. Like it's still like, you know, I think Generations is obviously better, and some parts of Unleashed I like more than Colors. I think Colors is a more well-rounded experience because, you know, Werehog doesn't exist in it, but and like, I honestly feel like the Sonic levels in Unleashed, like the day Sonic levels, were better than Sonic Colors, in my opinion. I don't know if that's controversial, but yeah, Sonic Colors is still a great game though. But if you are gonna play this, I say either maybe just emulate the original on Dolphin, or maybe just wait for more patches. I don't know if they're even still making patches for this, but
yeah, I don't know.
If you are gonna get it, just get on PlayStation. Like definitely don't get the Switch version, because that's like a lot of garbage. And the things they added just aren't enough to really justify it. So if you really just want to play Sonic Colors, I'd say maybe buy it, but probably wait for a sale. Like I think it was just okay.
It might be cheaper to just buy a Wii and then buy the game, and then maybe buy some other games on the Wii that you might want to check out. But, you know, the choice is yours and yours alone, if you will. So next thing we got here is Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. So I didn't fully finish either side of the games. I didn't finish 3D World or Bowser's Fury. I think I got through most of Bowser's Furies, so like I have a good idea of what that game kind of is. It's sort of like Super Mario Odyssey Mini, kind of. Yeah. It's sort of like the stepping stone into Odyssey, if you will. But, you know, from the base game Super Mario 3D World, I mean, it's the same game that I remember playing on the Wii U, and it's still fun. I don't know why of recent years people have been sort of like shaming the game as being like a bad 3D Mario game or whatever. It's still fun. I still enjoyed it. I think that what Miyamoto said with 3D Land, it's sort of like it's a 2D Mario game, but within a 3D setting, and you could sort of get that idea with the level design from 3D Land and this game as well. So yeah, I mean, it's still good. I think I got up to like World 3 or 4. We did play online multiplayer, which was kind of funny. I still hate that. Work. Yeah, it actually did kind of work. My biggest gripe is that we all share lives. So like if someone's griefing, you know, like, fuck you. But, you know, Super Mario 3D World multiplayer is still fun. And the fact that it does have online implementation is cool as well. But for the Bowser's Fury part of the game, I think that's what a lot of people were sort of looking forward to, because this is like new content. It's pretty good. It's just like an open world sort of like collectathon where you get these like sort of like coins or whatever.
Yeah, like cat coins or something.
Yeah, cat coins, and then
cat shines. That's what they call it.
Yeah, cat shines, and then you turn into Super Saiyan Cat Mario, and then you fight Bowser, and then you do it again. I think like 2 more times or whatever.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. I think that some of the challenges to get the cat coins were honestly kind of fun. They are actually challenging in some regards. Some of them are just literally just like defeat the enemies or like walk to this point or whatever, but some of them, I think one of them was like with the sleigh boot. I think that one was giving me like a lot of trouble, because you had to like collect like these purple coins or whatever like along the way, and that cat shine in particular was fun for me just because it was challenging. And, you know, Mario games aren't exactly the most challenging these days, but when they are, it is definitely very, very fun. But yeah, I think Bowser's Fury was a nice little like mini expansion to sort of show you what Super Mario Odyssey was before Mario Odyssey came out in a way. Maybe this was something that they were playing around with in like beta testing or whatever before they did Odyssey, and then they just decided to finish this into 3D World. I don't know. That's just my little speculation there, but yeah, Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury I think is a pretty good game, especially if you've never played 3D World. I think that this is like the perfect way to play it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved 3D World. I always thought 3D World got a bad rap just because it wasn't like a full 3D Mario game. And I actually think in recent years, now that Odyssey came out, I think a lot more people are like, you know, happy that 3D World exists because, okay, it was something different. You know, like, I think now that people got their full 3D Mario game, they're not as harsh about it anymore, which is good because I definitely think 3D World is like a really good game. And I honestly, like, some parts of me like it more than Odyssey just because I just like the more structured level design. It's kind of why I like Galaxy so much because Galaxy has a lot of like really structured levels and stuff. Because I don't really care too much about the exploration as much as I care about the level design, like I said with Psychonauts. And I think Galaxy really nailed that. And I think 3D World also nailed that. And I think it's something Bowser's Fury also nails because it has the same sort of open exploration that, you know, the other 3D Mario games has. But, you know, each of their stars, you know, it turns into basically like a galaxy level. It's like, okay, do this like challenge to like get the star, whether it be like a platforming thing or like kill some enemies real quick. You know, I think it does that all really, really well. And it's basically Galaxy as an open world, and I really like it. I thought Bowser's Fury was a lot better than I thought it was gonna be, and that's great. Like, you know, obviously the Super Saiyan Cat's fun. You know, you fight Bowser and stuff. You know, that's more just like a fun little thing. But in terms of the level design, I thought it was great. You know, I really like all the. You could like get, I forgot what you could do. You like store different power ups and stuff. Like, there's a lot of things in that. I played it quite a while. It was like the first thing that came out this year, so my memory's a little foggy. But yeah, it was like a lot of fun. I really did enjoy it. Like, again, I think I liked it more than Odyssey in some parts because Odyssey, it just poops out moons at you like every 2 seconds from doing nothing. And there's some parts in Odyssey where you have to do some specific platforming challenge, but a lot of the time it's just doing whatever. I really do like the more structured approach from Galaxy in this game as well. In terms of the base game, you know, I thought it was fantastic as well. I really like 3D World a lot. It's like I put it behind Galaxy 1, 2. Like I put it like right there, and then it was like Odyssey. I know that's like a weird take. Like I know some people like, but I don't know. I just like how these games are structured more. So yeah, I would definitely put it in like A tier. I probably put it between like let's see, where would you put it?
I was thinking bottom of A, like
I put it
right
above
here.
Mario Party.
Yeah, right there. All right, so last game we got here, WarioWare Get It Together. So we actually both have 2 different experiences with this game. You have much more of the single player side. I have a lot more with the multiplayer.
Yeah.
I did play a little bit of the single player stuff, and you know it's fun. You know it's pretty much the same WarioWare shenanigans with like the mini games and you know the boss fights at the end and all that other stuff. But the multiplayer aspect I think is like super duper good. I think that it is a lot better than a lot of people were expecting. And yeah, some of the game modes are like super competitive and super fun to do. One of them is sort of like a hot potato sort of thing where like every single player has to finish or like complete the minigame successfully so they could pass it on to the next player, and then whichever player is doing that minigame and like the balloon or whatever blows up, they lose. So that's like a pretty fun sort of spin on like the WarioWare minigame stuff. And then there's like a traditional like 1v1 thing or whatever. So there's definitely a lot of different modes that I'm forgetting here because it's been a couple months since I played the multiplayer stuff, but I think that WarioWare Get It Together is definitely going to be one of the sort of lower rated multiplayer games on the Switch because the Switch has so many good multiplayer games already. But this one is definitely one that you guys should not be skipping out on because I think WarioWare from the multiplayer side is like pretty good.
Yeah, and in terms of single player, I think it's really good as well. You know, I think there's been a kind of an absence of WarioWare. Like, I really like this series a lot. You know, I played a lot of the original Game Boy Advance one. Like I played a shit ton of that. And I played a lot of DIY where you can make your own mini games. But after that, there weren't too many. Like there was the Wii one I never played, and then the Game & Watch one, which we played on Wii U. That was fun, but that was more of a party game basically. It wasn't like a typical WarioWare game. And there was some on 3DS, but they were like compilation ones. So this was like the first new WarioWare game I played since like the DSi basically. And it's really good. Like I think the main gimmick of being able to switch different characters adds a lot to the micro games. Like each micro game feels really different depending on who you're playing as, and I think that's really neat. You can really like change like how you play a minigame just on how hard the character is. A lot of the flying characters are really easy. So obviously I would gravitate towards like Orbulon or Ashley or Wario because they could fly. But some of the harder ones, like some of the more gimmicky ones, are like, it can make it really hell. And it can be kind of fun in its own right. I really like the challenge mode where you could like basically compete with others online and do like a set challenge every week. And they like pick either sometimes they pick the character for you. So the first week was like 9-volt and he goes really, really fast. And if you don't know how 9-volt works, he basically moves on his own from left to right, and he can only shoot his yo-yo upward. And if they increase the speed by like 100%, you can imagine how frustrating that is. But it was really fun. I really did enjoy those weekly challenges. And I think that added a lot to the game. And yeah, the game is just a really good WarioWare game. I think the price point is a little steep for what it is because, it's a WarioWare game. Mm-hmm. But I think if you're going to play the single player plus multiplayer, I definitely think it's worth it. I mean, there's a lot of things to unlock too. Like, WarioWare games isn't just, I did the story in 4 hours and that's it. Like, nah, you're supposed to be gaining like high scores, gain the achievements and stuff, which is what I did. Like, I didn't do a whole 100% playthrough, but I did play until I was bored of it, which was, I got some good hours out of it. So, I'd ever put like top of B probably. But
yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the exact same thing. Yeah, because, when you compare it to like the other games, it's kind of like, there's not a story here, but like from the gameplay perspective, like for what it is, it's like a pretty good WarioWare experience,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, it's definitely the best WarioWare game I played in a while, and I really enjoyed it.
All right, so that is our tier list for the best games of 2021. We were going on for a while, so let's jump into the next part of the show where we're going to talk about Hawkeye, the Disney Plus show, episodes 5 and 6, and then our overall thoughts on the show comparatively to the other Disney Plus Marvel shows. We're going to be talking about spoilers, so if you guys do not want to be spoiled, please leave the video now or go to the next part of the show where we talk about Spider-Man. Either way, we're going to be talking about spoilers for Hawkeye episodes 5 and 6. So, episode 5, it pretty much picks up right where we left off, where Hawkeye's pretty much like, you're not getting into this, Kate, but Kate's like, I want to be a hero. And, we sort of have that sort of moment where like she goes back home and, she's sort of like talking to her mom and sort of trying to convince her that, hey, your fiance is a bad guy. But it turns out that she's the bad guy. And, that whole scene where she goes back to her apartment and she's talking to Yelena, that was very, very cool. I think that was the moment where I knew that like these two characters interacting with each other, I need more of that, which I'm glad we got that within the finale. But that scene really made me fall in love with Yelena and sort of see like her perspective on things. Obviously, I think that when you have like a sort of like antagonist character, quote unquote, and sort of get to see their perspective and sort of see where they're coming from, it makes sense to sort of, really like their character and sort of like who they are, because like she's also just like a fun character. Like she's very funny, she's very playful, joyful, all of that other stuff, despite her being a sort of like Black Widow assassin. But yeah, like that scene with them in the apartment was definitely the highlight for me, other than the final part with the Kingpin reveal, which I'll talk about more later. But what did you think about episode 5, Damian?
Yeah, I really liked it a lot too. I really liked their chemistry, between her and Kate Bishop. Like, she's just funny. I mean, I liked her a lot in Black Widow as well. Like, I thought she was one of the best parts about that movie. And I'm happy that she's going to be a bigger part of the MCU. Hopefully, like, later down the line to get to team up more. Sort of like how, Black Widow and Hawkeye themselves, like, team up a lot. It would be cool to see them interact a lot. Because they have good chemistry. Like, just her eating her stupid macaroni. Or, you don't want your macaroni? Or, like, Russian accent. Like, I don't know. It's just very funny to me. And yeah, besides that, like, I thought the episode was pretty... What else happened in that episode? I'm trying to remember.
Oh, wait, the beginning, the fucking blip, bro. I forgot about that shit.
Yeah, okay, that's what happened. Yeah.
The way they demonstrated the blip for Yelena, where, like, she goes to the bathroom, and then she blips back, and then, like, the entire bathroom is different, and I'm like, oh, shit, that happened. I was like, okay, now I get it, and sort of see how she went from being in the bathroom for 5 seconds to now 5 years later. Like, that was such a great way to convey the blip and sort of her experience with that. But yeah, like that was definitely a very, very cool way to open the episode.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think I sometimes I think the show doesn't go, or just the MCU in general doesn't go too much into like how tragic that has to be. Like, sometimes it does. Like with obviously Hawkeye had this whole thing with the Ronin, like how he was dealing with losing his family for 5 years and stuff. But sometimes I feel like they play it off a little too much. Like I really like when they show how devastating that has to be to like lose 5 years of your life. Well, you're not losing 5 years of life, but you're basically like missing out 5 years of your life and stuff. Like seeing everyone grow up and things like that. Like it has to be such a tragic thing. And I'm happy they really showed it off with her as well. Especially when she's like, "Oh, where's my sister?" and stuff. She's fucking dead. So it's like, it's like a really like sad moment. Like I think they really conveyed that really well in that one moment there. So yeah, I thought that was really well done. And her whole character in general is like really good. So I really hope we see her more in the MC, which we are. But I am excited to hear more and stuff. So
yeah, definitely. And seeing how Hawkeye and Kate Bishop are working together again and all of that other stuff. We obviously knew that like by the end of it, like Hawkeye was gonna sort of warm up to Kate Bishop because that's just how these shows go. I don't think that Hawkeye or God damn it, fucking Clint, like, I don't think he's a bad guy, obviously, but, like, when you first watch the show, you could very tell that, like, he doesn't want to, like, talk to Kate or anything. Like, he just wants to get his shit done and be with his family, but obviously, like, we wouldn't have a show if it wasn't going to be like that. But, seeing them work together and actually, warm up to one another, especially by the end of it where, he very much is sort of, like, bringing her into his family, in a sense, because of everything that happens within the finale. But, yeah, and then the reveal of Kingpin, like, I've been saying it, bro. I was like, episode 5, something's going to happen with Kingpin.
Where did you learn that, by the way? I
forgot. Someone said it on Twitter. Someone said, like, sources, like, Kingpin's going to be in Hawkeye. And, like, I kind of knew when, like, they were talking about, like, the big boss.
Guy?
Yeah. I was like, who's the big boss? You know what I'm saying? So when that reveal came up, by the way, fuck you, Brown Table, once a fucking again. This guy spoiled it for me. So when the finale happened, I was off Twitter. Right. But for episode 5, he posted a gif of Kingpin and said, "We won." I was like, God fucking damn it. But it wasn't of the image of like the cell phone screen or whatever, which like. He was making points on Twitter about how like that reveal could have been like a lot better. Instead of like having like the cell phone image, we could have actually like seen Kingpin, which is understandable. There definitely could have been a little bit of a different like sort of like directorial sort of change there in terms of how the Kingpin is revealed within that moment. But even then, like as a Daredevil fan and seeing that actor back again within the role, Vincent, that was just fucking great. I mean, I was just like, yes, let's fucking go. Like they're actually within the MCU now, and like that was just great. I have no idea what else to say other than that. I'm excited to see these characters merge into the MCU.
Yeah, I really need to watch Daredevil now. Because my brother was freaking out. He's like, holy shit.
Yeah, because like literally with the Daredevil show in particular, it is so fucking dark compared to the other MCU stuff that like seeing them brought into the I guess like PG-13 world of the MCU is going to be a little strange. We don't know yet if this is the same Kingpin from Netflix or if this is just like a brand new version of Kingpin for the MCU. I know the actor, he said that like he was playing the character how he was on the Netflix show, which is understandable. He sort of brought in that sort of same I guess presence that he did within the Netflix show onto the season finale. So, obviously, like, I can't really tell the difference. I know that there's a lot of people with complaints about the finale and Kingpin and all of that other stuff, which I guess we could get into now. But, I thought that the way that they brought in Kingpin was fine, but, things were rushed, obviously. There's only 6 episodes within the season, and they wanted to do a lot of things, but the way they wrapped it up, I think was okay. Like I said, just because there's 6 episodes, they had to rush things. There could have been like maybe 2 more episodes to like flesh things out with Kingpin and maybe with other storylines and plot lines with Kate Bishop's mom. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm not gonna complain too much about it.
I basically agree with like everything you said there. Like, I definitely think having an extra episode or 2 to flesh out, Kate's mom being the villain and Kingpin in general. I think that those 2 things would, definitely would benefit the show a lot more. I still really like the show, but I think like Kingpin just like, being there and like Kate's mom's like sort of like things like also didn't feel too fleshed out either. like, yeah, I definitely felt it could have done with an extra episode or two. I definitely agree. I felt it was like 6 episodes wasn't enough for the amount of things that we're bringing in. Especially like Kingpin's such a big deal. Like not even in terms of just like that. Like he's like a major villain. You know what I mean? Like I know we're both Spider-Man fans, and you watched the Daredevil show, so we both know like Kingpin's like a big deal. So yeah.
Yeah, Kingpin is a big ass villain to bring in, especially since because they are bringing in the same actor from the Netflix show, and people, myself included, are saying that is probably the best adaptation of Daredevil to date. And I think that you will not get any more perfect of a casting and sort of a series like that ever for that character in particular. So. Them bringing them in for the season finale of Hawkeye, is a little weird and a little rushed, but I'm sure that they have a lot more planned with Kingpin, and him getting shot at the end, I was like, no way they fucking killed him. You know what I'm saying? Because like, no way they brought in this actor, right? They brought in the same fucking actor from the Netflix show just to kill him off within the next episode after his reveal. No way.
Apparently, it's like a reference to the comic where that character shots him, but he gets blind or something, or like he gets an eye patch. I think, I don't know.
He's like temporarily blind or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what the comic storyline is there, but Kingpin in the MCU, I'm glad. The way that he was brought in, could have been better, obviously. But the same thing could be said with a lot of characters within the MCU. And I think that, having these characters now within the MCU officially is going to be exciting for the future, because I think that, especially after Endgame, a lot of those storylines sort of ended. So where are we going to go from there? You sort of bring in other stories that you already developed within Netflix shows and all of that other stuff, especially one of the biggest Netflix MCU shows that they did with Daredevil, seeing Kingpin in the flesh and sort of had that fight scene with Kate. Some people complain that like Kingpin doesn't really fight unless he like loses control of his anger, or if it's a fight that's like deeply personal to him, which like him fighting Kate Bishop isn't deeply personal, and it's not sort of something that like he got like super pissed off at, but like he was trying to hurt her mom, so like obviously like she's gonna fucking step in and protect her, right? So
that's true. I did feel off character for Kingpin to just show up. You know what I mean? Like, I would have expected him just to be like, shit, like, like whatever. But I'm just gonna go back into hiding or whatever, and like until it all calms down. Like, I feel like him just being there, that definitely felt kind of off character for him, because he's never like that. He's always like, even in things not in Daredevil, like just his character in general, like he always like lets other people do it. It's not until like someone's up in his face is when he like really gets in there. You know what I mean? So him just being there felt a little weird. Also, like, I feel like Kate Bishop just being able to defeat him also felt a little weird. Like, she's definitely like a newbie hero. I'm not saying she can't or anything, but, it's definitely like, he's a big boy. Like, not like both in terms of importance and in terms of like, strength. Like, he's a pretty tough guy to take down. So I feel like him being like beaten pretty easily did feel a little anticlimactic in my opinion. And again, just the things wrong with Kate's mom. It was also I still can't like. I'm like, why did she do it? Like, mostly just like, I want to protect Kate.
It was something about Kate's father, I guess her husband or whatever, owed money to Kingpin. It was a lot of like sort of like 1 to 2 lines sort of like explaining like their past or whatever, which is like lazy writing. And like obviously if they had at least one more episode, they could have explained all of that stuff like visually to us, but instead it was just like, like we've been doing business together for a while, but where I cross the line is with my daughter. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess that's where the story begins and that's where the story ends with them too, right? So it, like I said, it definitely sucks that these things were rushed, but I think we already knew that going into these last 2 episodes that things were going to be rushed because of how things were projecting and how many characters were already going to be in here. And, before even episode 5, we didn't even know Kingpin was going to be in there, but there was a big boss at the head of everything. So something was going to happen there, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, like, besides that, I think the action was all really good. Like, I think them using all the different trick arrows were really cool. Like, had some funny moments, like when they shrank the truck and just got taken by the owl. I'm like, they're just dead now.
We have no idea what's gonna happen to that, but
I thought like the action stuff was really good. Like just seeing like Kate like become basically Hawkeye herself is really cool. And I guess that thing at the end too with what's her face, Hawkeye's wife was like a Shield agent. I mean, we probably could have guessed that. I don't think they ever said that before, but she was kind of like a little too calm with everything happening, and she's like really good at finding dirt on people. So I'm like, she had to be like a Shield agent or something. Like, yeah, she was. So yeah, that was kind of a cool thing to like know for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think that they're hinting at like she's like another like comic book character or whatever. I don't even know what that character is, but that's what Twitter told me. And I'm not sure if they're gonna explore that further. Who knows? Depending on what they want to do with Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye, whether this is the end of it or if he's gonna appear in like cameo roles or whatever. Because Kate Bishop, she did come into her own within this series, but she still has obviously a lot of learning to do. And that whole conversation with her mom after she defeated Kingpin, which, like you said, maybe shouldn't have happened, but, she got away with it by being smarter and, using those trick arrows and shit like that. But that whole conversation that she had with her mom, like her mom obviously had no idea that like how much Kate could handle, and like she just thought that like, oh, she's still her little girl in a sense, and like, you like everything's sort of like handed to Kate, but like in a way that like throughout this series she's learned that like that's not how the world works, and maybe she even learned that beforehand. I'm not entirely sure, but she's not this almighty sort of powerful teenager, which I think that's what her mom thought she was, but that's obviously not the case.
Yeah, but I guess just overall I thought it was a good series. But like we were saying this whole time, definitely feels like rushed. Like it definitely could use like an extra episode or two. Just to flesh out, like, again, the two big things being Kingpin and her mom. Like, I feel like could have gone more into that. Or maybe just say Kingpin for, like, just as, like, an end stinger, right? It's just like, they show Kingpin at the very end, and then that will lead into something else. Like, I feel like they didn't have to, like, make him a part of the show, if that, in that sense. Like, it could just been like, he was behind the scenes the whole time and stuff. But, I think it was cool to see, him doing Kingpin stuff, but like, yeah, I think it would have been better if they just left him as a like end of the show type deal, and then we could deal with him later. So
that would have been a better after credit scene than the one we got. So
yeah, it was that's okay. It was just the musical thing.
No, I was just like, is a character gonna pop in or something like that? I was like, this after credit scene's a waste of my fucking time.
I thought we were gonna show like Kingpin at the end, like watching it or something.
I same thing. I thought some character was going to appear in like the audience or something, but that just didn't happen. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think that Hawkeye as a show, like if you know what you're getting into, like it's Hawkeye. It's a fucking show about Hawkeye, and he's a very grounded Avenger compared to the rest of them. So that's what we got within this show. Very much like with the Winter Soldier and Falcon show, but on a much smaller scale, actually, which is kind of crazy to really think about, because that show was already sort of like on the grounds as is, but this one literally only takes place in New York. So yeah, I think that I still had a great time with this show, like 100%. I'm not exactly sure where I would rank it among the other shows now, because we have so many of them and I can't really, form a opinion that quickly, especially one where it involves ranking, because people do take those very seriously. But yeah, this is definitely one of the better Disney Plus shows. The ending, the whole package as is, was a little rushed, but I think that's just what happens when you order 6 episodes and you want to tell this story with so much detail and so much sort of depth into it. But yeah, it's still overall fun. Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop was like the perfect casting, and I'm glad that she's in the show and she's in the MCU as Kate Bishop, because
we know
I mean, yeah, I am the Haley Steinfeld simp. I'm not gonna lie, but like she's a fucking fantastic actor.
No, she was really good, yeah.
Yeah, and I cannot wait to see her in this role more, and within Spider-Verse and whatever else that she does. She's fucking great. So what else can I really say?
Yeah, I think her casting was really good. I think she really nailed like Kate Bishop being like, cocky, sort of like oh, I know what I'm doing, and then I don't know what I'm doing, and like being like a good foil to Hawkeye and stuff. Like I thought her casting was really good as well. I can't wait to see her in more stuff. And like I said, I can't wait for her to like team up with Yelena as well. Like I think they make a really good duo, and it would be really nice to see either like another Disney Plus show with them or like a full movie. Like I'm not too sure what they're gonna do, but it'd be really cool to see both of them together. So.
All right, so next we're gonna talk about Spider-Man: No Way Home. So I'm not exactly sure how long we're gonna be talking about this fucking movie, but we're gonna fucking talk about it, full details, spoilers, and all. So yeah, if you guys don't want to be spoiled by this movie, if you haven't yet been spoiled by it, more power to you, because fucking Twitter did not give a shit within that hashtag of hashtag Spider-Man: No Way Home. They did not care. They were just dropping screenshots and shit. But anyways, spoilers for this movie. So Damian, what were your general thoughts on it after you saw it?
I fucking loved it. I really, really liked it, but I don't know how well it would be liked by people that didn't have the same experience as Spider-Man as us, right? Like, I feel like the full enjoyment out of this movie is growing up with the Sam Raimi movies, and then watching the Andrew Garfield movies, and now watching the Tom Holland movies all in like real time. You know what I mean? Like, we were there since the beginning, really. Like, I watched the first Spider-Man in theaters when I was a kid and stuff. Like, it's been like a whole ride up until now, so it felt like very like cathartic to see all of them together and stuff. I don't know how well it would be for people who haven't had that same experience. Maybe it would be just as good. I'm not too sure, but I feel like this is definitely a movie for fans. Like, it definitely felt like this is what we want. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't really care too much about accessibility. More so, it cared about just fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely a Spider-Man movie where it was definitely. Excuse me. It was definitely warranted the sort of subtitle Spider-Man Endgame, because it really does bring everything from these Spider-Man movies together into this one. And it is still a Tom Holland movie. Like, a majority of this movie is still about Tom Holland becoming Spider-Man, and how he becomes that Spider-Man by the end of it is like...
we guessed that right.
It's fucking great, and Toby and Andrew's inclusion, they are definitely side characters, which is good, because like with the movie, how long as it was already, and how many things that Tom had to go through in his Spider-Man, and then bringing the other two in as sort of side characters to sort of help cure the other villains, which, when that was brought up within the trailers, that was like a very good sort of like Spider-Man mission to do, like, and sort of like Aunt May sort of like projecting that onto him is like, hey, like, you have this power, you have this gift, you should try to fix them because you can, and I think that the fact that they were able to sort of pull it off and sort of make this movie sort of make sense by the end of it. There are definitely some pacing issues. The first, I guess, hour of the movie is a lot of just like setup, if you will, just before we get into like the real crazy madness with like the other villains coming in and sort of seeing Tom Holland Spider-Man try to actually fix everyone. Like, that first act of the movie isn't all that great, but once we get into the sort of like action and sort of the real meat and potatoes of this movie, that's when it really starts going.
Yeah, I mean, like, there was like a lot of fighting too in this this movie. There was like a lot of great fight scenes, like even
a lot of personal fighting.
yeah, that too. Even like before all the villains, like, I thought the fight with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange was really good, like in that mirror dimension place. Like, we saw that all in the trailers and stuff, but just seeing it in the movies, like, it was so good. Like, him, like, bending, like, reality and stuff. And then Peter, like, outsmarting him with math. I'm like, you got him. So, I thought that was a really good fight scene. I think that really goes into the rest of the movies. Because if there was one thing, if you guys remember me complaining about the other Tom Holland movies, was the action, right? I didn't think the action was as good as the Sam Raimi movies or anything. But I think this movie really shut me up, because I thought the fights were all really good in this movie. Especially some of the later fights where it feels very like brutal, like the way, like, especially with Goblin and Tom Holland fighting, like that felt really good. Well, bad, I guess, but you know what I mean. Like, it felt like it was like real gut punches and stuff. So yeah, I thought that was really good.
The apartment fight scene is definitely the best fight scene of the entire movie. And like when we are building up to the other villains, when we first see the Doc Ock fight, and then the Green Goblin shows up. Okay, so I saw this movie twice in theaters. I saw it on Thursday and then Friday. Right. The second viewing was actually a lot better, just because of the audience that I had. So when the Green Goblin showed up, they were cheering and shit, and I was like, oh, they don't know what's gonna happen next. And then he gets zapped out of there. I was like, oh shit, they really fucking blue balled them. But I'm sure that a lot of other people felt the same way. They were like, yes, the fucking Green Goblin, we're gonna get the fight. And then like it just pans away, and we get Doctor Strange explaining how the multiverse has happened and all of that other shit. But going back to the apartment fight scene, like that shit was great, because like I don't think we've ever had a fight scene within Tom Holland Spider-Man movies that was that sort of like upfront and confrontational, because like with the Vulture, it was mostly within the air and sort of him actually getting the shit kicked out of him by the Vulture. And then with Mysterio, it was a lot of just like CGI sort of drones and all of that other stuff. But now that we have the Green Goblin with Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, mind you, like this shit was fucking great. Which like I'll talk about Willem Dafoe later because he was definitely by far like
he killed it. He was really good.
He was a lot better than like he really needed to be, honestly, because like he wasn't even just like a cameo, which is like another thing that I could praise this movie for, is that like all of the other movie characters that they brought in had a purpose. They weren't just there to be like, hey, do you remember me from this movie, sort of thing. Like the villains had a purpose within this movie to show Tom Holland, like with great power comes great responsibility, and sort of like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, actually killing Aunt May, which was something that I honestly didn't think the MCU Spider-Man would ever do.
Yeah, we both speculate that I think Aunt May or someone important to him was gonna die. Either MJ or Aunt May. I think Aunt May makes sense. And it just makes so much sense that Green Goblin did it too, because Green Goblin's always really one of the arch nemesis for Spider-Man, and Tom Holland doesn't really have a Green Goblin. So just seeing Willem Dafoe do it's just so weird. Like I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's just so cool. Like. Obviously, it's really sad that Aunt May died. And her death was really... At first, I thought they were not going to do it. At first, I'm like, no way she survived that glider hitting her like that. I'm like, no way. Because she was, like, fine. And I think that's a very realistic death, being like, oh, I'm fine. Oh, shit, I'm not fine. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, like, honestly, a really believable death. Even her saying, like, the classic words to Tom Holland, like, felt very real. And, like, just Tom Holland's acting was really good in that scene. Like, it's just, like... it was just really good.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, when I first saw that scene, I was like, shit, like, not like they are pulling things from the Spider-Man PS4 game, understandably so, because that game's fucking amazing. Yeah. And like one of those things that they pulled from was killing Aunt May, and like the way that they did it for this MCU Spider-Man, which I guess like Uncle Ben's not really like a huge factor within this world for Tom Holland, which is fine. I think that the way that they were able to pull it off, especially by the end of the movie, where like no one knows who Peter Parker is because Aunt May's dead, and like literally everyone else close to him literally doesn't know who he is. Which is fine. We'll talk about that ending more later, obviously. But, them killing Aunt May in that way, like, my heart literally sank when I was sitting in theaters. I was like, fuck, man. Like, they actually did that shit. And they used Aunt May as the sort of, like, Uncle Ben equivalent to literally every other version of Spider-Man, which is fine. And I think that, him dealing with that grief and him dealing with that anger, and you really do see that within the last fight with the Green Goblin, where like he dents the fucking shield when he like slams down. I was like, shit, like my man trying to fucking kill him, and like, go on.
I was just gonna say, I think it hits harder because we had like two other movies with Aunt May. By any time Uncle Ben dies, it's just like the first like half of the first movie, basically. Aunt May, they were building up her character for a little bit. You really like her. She's like the cool aunt and stuff, and she's a cool character. And then to kill her, so I feel like it hits a little harder than any of the Uncle Ben deaths, just because it's like, oh man, like she was a character, you know what I mean? And now she's just dead. And Aunt May dying is a pretty rare thing. Like only in the game they did that. Also, was Feast wasn't in the other movies. That was a reference to the game to this game, right?
Okay. Yeah. So I have no idea if that was like explicitly told to us within No Way Home, because I think she was working with like a sort of like charity thing within Far From Home, I should say, the second Tom Holland movie. I think Feast might have been a part of it. I'm not entirely sure, but definitely, when I saw Feast and I saw Aunt May, I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, oh, that's not good. Yeah.
They're not gonna do it again, are they? But they fucking did. And like, the scene afterwards with like Tom Holland just like watching the sort of like Daily Bugle sort of like newscast or whatever, and him sort of just like sitting there, I was like, fuck, man, like this is some great sort of like emotional storytelling for Tom Holland Spider-Man, because Tom Holland Spider-Man up until that point has been all, kitty-go-lucky, I'm just a kid sort of thing. But, now he's actually becoming a fucking adult, and, he's actually becoming Spider-Man, if you will, much more so than he did in any of the previous movies, which is fucking great to see.
Yeah, I think it was great, like, just because, when Tony Stark died, it was more like a mentor dying, but it wasn't like, he like, really respected Tony and stuff. But I don't think that was enough to make him into Spider-Man, because he wasn't like, it was not like his fucking aunt, you know what I mean? Like, Aunt May dying is really going to trigger that change in him like all the other Spider-Man did. You know what I mean? And I think it's really cool to have this whole trilogy, like the whole home trilogy, be basically Tom Holland's origin story, like we were saying, as you know, we were speculating before. And I think that's really fucking good, because I don't think any other Spider-Man had this much build up to this moment. You know what I mean? Most of the time they get bit by the spider, they do something bad, Uncle Ben says something, then he dies, and then he becomes Spider-Man. This one's like a whole thing, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
And Tom Holland went through a lot of shit already with like Infinity War and stuff. So just having this really be the final nail that makes him Spider-Man, I think it's like really cool, you know?
Yeah, I think that anyone that was shit talking Tom Holland Spider-Man, I mean, I think this movie will hopefully shut them up. I mean, like us personally, or should I say for me personally, like I didn't mind him in the role. Like 100%. When people asked me about which one's my favorite Spider-Man, I really couldn't pick. Like even with Andrew before watching this movie, which I will talk about Andrew more later. But you know, I couldn't pick between them three just because like I think that they all do something good within their own iteration of Spider-Man. So it was definitely very hard for me to pick. And even now, like it is still hard for me to pick just because like I think they all do something very, very special with their own iteration of the character. But yeah, I think that, you know, Tom Holland was a fantastic fucking actor within this movie. Willem Dafoe, he really showed up within this movie more so than he really had to, just because like, you know, he's showing up as the Green Goblin again. And I'm glad they ditched the helmet. I think a lot of people have brought this up. They ditched the helmet so we could actually see his facial expressions, which was a really, really nice touch, because seeing him, you know, sort of, you know, make his faces right before he fucking kills Aunt May, I was like, this motherfucker's evil. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job. Just like, you know, I'm glad they kept the mask for a little bit just to show, like, you know, just the, you know, the reference to it. But I'm really glad throughout the movie he became like a more classic Goblin design. Like, you know, he had like the purple like hood and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think it was a cool way to, you know, both reference Sam Raimi and just Goblin himself, because I think that embodiment of Goblin is basically just like Goblin at that point. Like, it's not even just Sam Raimi's like Green Goblin. It's like this is their Green Goblin now, because you know he triggered this change in Tom Holland as well. So yeah, I thought that was really cool to see. And you know, Willem Dafoe's acting was just fantastic in this. Like he still nailed that super like crazy guy. Also that scene when, you know, he was trying to find out who the villain was, when they were like, you know,
the fucking Spidey sense shit. Yeah.
That spider sense shit was so tense, because like he's in a room full of bad guys, and then he has to find the one guy who's actually gonna like do something bad, and him finding out it's Willem Dafoe is just like, oh man, that was such a good scene.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, you know, one of the biggest criticisms for Homecoming was that people were like, yo, man, he doesn't have the spider sense or whatever. And then, like, that was a huge point within Far From Home, the movie afterwards. And obviously, within No Way Home, the spider sense thing is still, like, a factor, because that obviously played in when Doc Ock first appeared, and obviously within the apartment scene once again. So, you know, the way that they used the spider sense within these movies after Homecoming was obviously done very, very well. But yeah, I mean, just real quick, I need to go back and talk about my boy Charlie Cox. I mean, you know, like him being in this movie was fucking great. I mean, it's obviously like a very short scene. I think that there were some like deleted scenes, and one of them was like a courtroom scene with him and Tom Holland in there. But yeah, I think that the fact that Charlie Cox has returned as Daredevil, and you know, it's not revealed to, you know, Peter and all of them that, you know, he is Daredevil. He just says, "I'm a really good lawyer," and I'm like, "Yes, you fucking are." Yeah, I mean, you know, that was definitely one of the moments within theaters that didn't get a lot of people hyped, just because like those shows and that sort of iteration of the MCU isn't that touched upon, because it's not referenced all that much. But you know, for me and everyone else within the theaters that were fucking geeking out, you know, they knew who that was. That was fucking Daredevil, and you know,
my
that
theater,
was just great to see.
I saw it really early. I saw it like 11:30 or something a.m. So it was still a packed theater though, because I saw it like launch when it came out. There was actually a lot of people like, oh shit, like when he showed up. And my brother again freaked out because he's like, it's fucking him. So yeah, I really need to watch Daredevil now. I've been slacking on it for so long, because I didn't know if they were gonna bring any of the characters back, you know, because of the Netflix thing. But now that they're in the MCU, I'm like, fuck, I need to watch this shit now.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure if these are the same versions of those characters, but you know, it's it's definitely nice to know where they got their start from and why they're bringing them back into these roles, obviously. And also, it's just a fantastic 3-season show. That's all I can really say. But the sort of build up into Andrew and Toby coming into the film. So this was kind of leaked on like 4chan or some shit, where it was like Ned is gonna find the other Spider-Man. So like so when he was sitting down and he was like, I wish I could just find Peter, I was like, it's gonna fucking happen. It's gonna fucking happen. So yeah, I mean, just seeing Andrew Garfield in that suit once again was fucking great. My theater was like insane.
Yeah, my theater like popped off when he showed up.
Yeah, the second showing, they were like, yo, what the fuck? I was like, yes sir, let's fucking go, you know. And then with Toby sort of just like being a fucking guy, just being there, like that was kind of funny.
My first reaction when I saw him, like, yo, he got old.
I mean, yeah, I guess they didn't do any sort of like de-aging on him, which is fine. I think that, you know, seeing a much older Spider-Man in the way that he was great. And sort of the scene afterwards, after they brought him all in and with like the funny jokes or whatever with Ned's Nana or whatever, you know, like that was fun to sort of see, you know, Andrew Garfield, like, you know, when he's talking to Ned and MJ and sort of like having to like prove himself that he is Spider-Man, you know, that was like a very cute scene and very funny.
It felt very natural too. I'm like, yeah, he loves being Spider-Man.
100%, which like, you know, Andrew Garfield within this movie, like, holy fuck, man, my man brought his A game 100%. Like, this guy's a fantastic fucking actor, and watching him in this movie act the way he did, you know, you could just tell that he loved being back in that suit and being back as Spider-Man. And the emotional performance by him when he's talking about Gwen's death, and then after he saves MJ, like, oh my fucking god,
it was
man.
So good to get closure, because he was talking about when, you know, when they were talking to Tom Holland. I don't want to get to that scene just yet, but, you know, when they were doing that, he's like, yeah, I've been in a dark place, because, you know, ever since, you know, MJ's Gwen's death, I was just been like really depressed, and just, you know, instead of being more Peter, I've just been more Spider-Man lately, because he just wants to let, you know, that anger go, I guess. And to see
he stopped pulling his punches.
What happened?
He stopped pulling his punches.
Yeah, he stopped pulling his punches, he said. Yeah, so he was obviously being a little more like unhinged and stuff. So to see him get that closure by saving MJ at the end there, and like, you know, not messing up, and him like crying, I'm like, bro, I felt that shit. I'm like, it's like we get like a conclusion to this character that I never thought we would see ever, because, you know, he's never gonna get a third movie, so it's really cool. Well, it could happen.
Twitter,
I mean, we don't know now.
Otherwise,
it's multiverse shit. But yeah, but, you know, it was nice to get that closure either way, like to see him finally be okay, and to, like, you know, have that shit off his chest. That was really nice to see.
I mean, yeah, just like quickly to go on the sort of Amazing Spider-Man 3 route. Apparently, these are obviously like Twitter rumors and shit, but Sony and Marvel are looking to maybe do more projects with Andrew Garfield. My hopes is that when they do a Venom with Tom Hardy's Venom and a Spider-Man crossover, they actually do it with Andrew Garfield.
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
that's my hope, just because I feel like Andrew Garfield Spider-Man is a lot darker, and he's been through a lot more shit, sort of like emotionally, and, you know, he hasn't had the sort of best run in his life as Peter Parker and shit. So I think that would make a lot more sense within that version of that Spider-Man facing off with that Venom, if you will. But yeah, I mean, after this movie, you know, a lot of people on Twitter were like, yeah, like, I want to see Andrew Garfield back. And I'm like, yeah, no fucking shit. This guy's great. Like, he's a great actor. He loves playing Spider-Man. He loves the fucking character. It's just unfortunate that his movies were just not handled the best, like far worse than fucking Spider-Man 3 was. And like, it just sucks that, like, when I'm rewatching these movies, I'm like, man, like, this plot line doesn't make sense. This fucking parent storyline I don't fucking care about, you know, and like all of these things sort of like add up, obviously. But like, if they were to do a Amazing Spider-Man 3 or like another sort of like Spider-Man project with Andrew Garfield, I'm fucking all on board, because this guy deserves it, honestly, because he just loves the character so much, and he really showed up within this movie for, like, I'm not gonna say no reason. Like, he didn't have to show up the way he did, but he really sort of brought his best.
Yeah, this movie also fixed like Electro. Like I thought Jamie Foxx did like a really good job in this movie. Like he felt very threatening this time. Like I think his character just felt a lot better now. Like he felt more serious about things. Like they did a great job with Electro this time. Like I think he did a good job. I don't know if it was just the writing or what. Like, but yeah, it's way better than the Amazing Spider-Man 2's Electro.
I mean, yeah, he's definitely the sort of like jokey villain out of the five of them, which is fine. I think that works for Jamie Foxx as an actor. But yeah, I think that the way that they revamped Electro for this movie was good. Obviously, the two stars of the villains, other than the Green Goblin, is him and Doc Ock, which, it was great to see that Peter decided to fix him first so we could see that good side of Octavius.
Yeah, seeing that closure too was so good. Dude, I almost, when Tobey Maguire and him were like talking because he's like, better now, I almost cried. But when they played the Sam Raimi music, I'm like, oh.
It's like, how are you? I'm like, I'm trying to do better. I was like, no, the
bro,
feels.
That was so good. When I heard that music, I'm like, fuck. It was so good.
Yeah. And then other moments, such as them sort of like waiting for the villains to come by, and all three of them are sort of like just talking, and we see the scaffolding that Andrew Garfield was taking. I was like, hey, wait, I know that fucking shot, from like the leaked footage and all of that shit. And them talking about their past villains that they faced off that aren't within this movie. Hints at Venom, Rhino, and all of that other stuff was great to see. And yeah, I think that the sort of like banter and the humor between the three Spider-Men was like very, very well done and like smartly written too. I think the joke about like, like I was on the Avengers, and it's like, that's great. What is that? I was like, that's a fantastic. That is a fantastic fucking joke, because Tom Holland was like, wait, what the fuck? You guys don't have the Avengers? But yeah, like I just love seeing all three of them interact with each other, and it was just so much fun.
Yeah, I kind of had a whole movie with them just talking, like just that whole scaffolding scene when they were just all talking shit with each other. I'm like, oh, it's so good. Like, I never knew I wanted this. Like, it's just and so good. Also, when like Andrew Garfield sort of like beating himself down, he's like, nah, man, you're amazing. Yeah, you're amazing.
I was like, oh, come on, like that's a little too on the nose, but still, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man sort of like bringing Andrew Spider-Man up a bit, just because he knows that he's going through some rough shit right now, and maybe we'll see the end of that story. Who knows? But yeah, I think that the entire sort of like Empire State or the Statue of Liberty, my fault. That entire sort of like act of the movie was so much fun.
Yeah, just seeing them all fight, like all the other villains and stuff, was amazing. I mean, that's just like what I dream about, right? Just seeing all three of them fight, like all these villains from all the other ones, like them, and not even just beating them, like they're curing them too. Like they cure like Lizard, they cure Electro, like they cure every single one of them. Even Green Goblin at the end, even though Tom Holland wanted to kill him, understandably so, he made him better as well. Like I thought that was just really, really good. And like it just brings closure to all these villains, because Spider-Man never really wants to kill anyone. Kind of like Batman in that sense, where he like all these villains mostly kill themselves at the end. So it's really cool to see all of them get like a happy ending in this sense. Like, I don't know how the multiverse works. Like that Toby probably doesn't have that Doc Ock. That Doc Ock will go to his timeline or whatever. Because there's like branching timelines and shit. But it's still cool to see them like be happy in one timeline. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, it was just so much fun to just see them sort of like cure each other. And then going back to the sort of like MJ falling scene, my theater, the second showing, man, they were clapping, they were cheerful, and understandably so, because I think literally everyone that has watched all of these movies, and then you see that scene within the second trailer, and and you have like a very, very strong feeling that the other Spider-Man are within these movies. You're like, yes, Andrew, fucking save her, please save her. And it happened, man. It was so good, and I loved it. And honestly, like the second time that I saw it, because of the sort of like crowd reaction, I was sort of getting watery eyed. I didn't tear up, like I didn't like full on cry, but I was like, man, like, oh my god, these movies are making me feel shit, man. Oh my god,
I was just like that Pepe that's smiling but we're crying, like with tears in my eyes. That's basically me the whole movie.
Yes. Oh my god.
But yeah, I think one scene I really liked that we didn't talk about yet is when Toby and Peter like were talking to Tom Holland after he was very sad, like on like the top of their school. Like I thought that was a very good scene too. Basically them just saying like, hey, we understand how you feel, like for real, because we're you. So you know what I mean. So
it's like, Uncle Ben said that, and like, Gwen Stacy and all of that other shit, them like hinting at their own movies and their own sort of universes. Like that was super fun to see. And that sort of being like their first interaction with Tom Holland Spider-Man really makes sense and really does sort of all come together. And the next scene afterwards where they're all trying to like come up with the cure, there's some fun and cute moments in there where like Ned calls out Peter and then they're all like, wait, do you mean me? I was like, okay, yeah, these are some pretty good jokes, if you will. Some people might find them a little corny. The one I found, honestly, when Willem Dafoe said the scientist joke.
I'm a scientist myself.
Okay, yeah. Me personally, I was just like, God damn it, please don't. But like, I get it. Some people are gonna get a laugh out of that just because they love the Sam Raimi movie so much and the memes, obviously. But me personally, I was just like, God damn it, please don't.
It was very on the nose, yeah.
Yeah, it was just a little too on the nose for my taste. But yeah, I mean, just overall, what else is there to really talk about?
Well, besides the ending, but like...
Yeah, besides the ending, before we get to that, I think the way that they used Doctor Strange within this movie was fine. It's just like how they used Iron Man within Homecoming, maybe even to a little bit more.
Yeah, plot device. Yeah, he did very plot devicey. Yeah.
Just because, like...
Oh, yeah.
No, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I think he still has good, like, chemistry between him and his friends and stuff. More than Tony Stark did. Because, he was just like, hey, like, you don't get the suit anymore and stuff, like, after the whole thing in Homecoming. Like, this one, he definitely feels more, like, understanding to Tom Holland and, like, how he wants to, like, help these people and stuff after seeing how it was working and stuff. But yeah, he still felt very plot devicey. Even like with the box, is okay, release them. You know what I mean? Like it just felt like very like it was literally a plot device. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that him being at the beginning and then him being at the end to sort of like patch everything up was fine because obviously Tom Holland can't do that by himself as just Spider-Man. But yeah, the final fight with him and Green Goblin was obviously very brutal, and he almost damn near killed him. But it was very fitting that Tobey Spider-Man came in and was like, "Nope, you're not doing this." Yeah. And then Green Goblin stabbed him, which I think some people in my theater thought he died. Which honestly, my first time seeing it, I was like, "Oh shit, is he dead? Don't tell me he dies." I don't think people that watch Tobey's films could have handled seeing him die on screen.
And again, that really shows. Again, all this movies is all poetic justice. He didn't want to kill. He didn't even want him to die in the first movie. His glider did that for him. So him getting stabbed by that same glider that was meant for him. That's very a poetic thing. I thought he was gonna die for a second, but no, they're not gonna kill him. I'm in pain.
He's like, it's not my first time being stabbed, and I was like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, he'll be fine. But yeah, again, I guess in terms of like. I just don't know how this movie would be if you haven't watched the other movies. Like, you have to both watch all of the MCU and all of the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield movies to, like, fully appreciate this movie, I feel. Or else you miss, like, a lot of what makes this movie so special. And I feel like having that extra nostalgia that we have adds, like, a whole lot of magic to it as well. Like, I don't know how well it would stand on its own. And I think Spider-Verse works on its own because it's more just taking from the comic stuff. This one's specifically like the movie characters, and it's basically ending a lot of arcs in those movies as well, which is great. But I just don't know how it would stand on its own. Like, as a Spider-Man fan, it's like an S+ movie, but like as some other person just watching it, like, I don't know how well it's gonna be.
Yeah, definitely. Like they were saying, this is the Spider-Man Endgame, and it makes sense because you kind of have to watch the Sam Raimi movies, the Mark Webb movies, and the Tom Holland stuff with his introduction within Civil War to his solo movies to the Avengers. Like you need to really take in a lot of stuff before you could really fully appreciate No Way Home. But I feel like most general audiences can, because Spider-Man movies are sort of like normie movies in a sense, if you will.
Yeah.
So like I feel like most people can appreciate this movie for what it is. Even if you haven't watched Andrew Garfield's movies, like once you see him in this movie, I'm sure that there's plenty of people that watched him in this movie and was like, maybe I should go back and watch the Amazing Spider-Man movies because they missed out on them because they heard that they were bad or whatever. But I mean, they are still kind of bad to a certain extent. But I think that there's a sort of underlining appreciation for those movies just because they are still very different from the atypical MCU movie that we're sort of used to today. But yeah, when Peter sort of mentions the spell to everyone forget who Peter Parker is, I was like, shit, that's fucking Spider-Man.
Yeah, like he went full Spider-Man at the end, like, and this is something, again, we were speculating for a while, that like this movie was going to introduce him to be like actual Spider-Man now. Not saying he wasn't, but the more traditional sense of what Spider-Man is, and him making this like sacrifice, like making everyone forget who he is, concealing his identity again, not really gonna have any real backup from any of the other heroes. Like he's gonna be like a hero, like a Spider-Man again, like a solo hero, like he usually is. And I thought that was great, like just him in the end just being in a shitty apartment all alone. No one knows who he is. No one knows who's Spider-Man. Like, no recognition. Like, that's what Spider-Man is. And I think Tom Holland knows, like, that's kind of what he has to do. And, putting him, the safety of his friends and loved ones first, than just him being friends with them seems like something, Peter would do as well. Because, when he had the opportunity to tell MJ at the end to be like, hey, look, I'm Peter, you remember? Like, you could try, remember? But he saw she was having like a pretty good life without him. He's just like, okay, maybe it's better this way and stuff. And even at the end when he was on Aunt May's grave and just like happy to even know who he was, I'm like, fuck, that sucks, bro.
Yeah, I mean, literally the spell fucking worked. No one knows who he is. And that entire coffee shop scene where like Ned just passes by, doesn't even, sort of pay attention to him, and MJ sort of just like, working as a, normal customer would come in. She's just like, yeah, whatever, making small talk or whatever, obviously it is awkward between them two just because Peter knows a lot more about her than she knows about this stranger, right? So there is that sort of dynamic there, and you see him like rehearsing the lines and all of that other stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, he's probably gonna say no because that's who fucking Spider-Man is. And I'm glad that, he didn't try to like convince her, because that shit would have been awkward and it would have been weird, and it probably would have taken a lot more time than, she probably would have been freaked out and shit, which is probably understandable, because like this fucking stranger just walks up to you, is like, I know who you are, I know you're this and this, and it's like, wait, what the fuck are you talking about, So, I'm glad that they are ditching all of these characters behind, because this next trilogy, we were dubbing it the college trilogy, but he's getting his GED, which he doesn't necessarily have to go to college after that, so he might just be full-time Spider-Man. Who the fuck knows? How the hell is he paying for that apartment? So
yeah, they're probably gonna fit in with the Daily Bugle now or something. Like, I don't know. Like, I know
maybe
the Daily Bugle is different in this, but I don't know. They might do something different, like, to make it more like a classic Spider-Man now. Because I thought it was just so good, man. Like, just literally the whole time, like, he's just Spider-Man now.
Yeah, literally the last 15 minutes of this movie, they literally turn him into the classic Spider-Man before all of the MCU stuff happened. Because like I've said so many times, the way that they had to bring in Spider-Man for the MCU was into Civil War, and because of that, he was sort of plopped into with the rest of the Avengers and all of this other stuff. But now that the Endgame saga's over, they're sort of able to reverse that and undo it with this storyline of, the multiverse and all of this other shit. And it makes sense. I mean, like, there's this meme that was going around on Twitter where it's like Batman fans seeing Bruce Wayne happy, they're smiling, and then Spider-Man fans seeing Peter Parker happy, they're fucking frowning. It's like we like seeing this kid fucking depressed, because like we haven't seen that in a while. Like, this version of Spider-Man has been like the mainstream version of Spider-Man. Kids have gotten to know ever since Tom Holland went on screen in Civil War, right? So like it's always been this sort of like go lucky sort of like, I'm just a kid Spider-Man, but now it's like shit's getting real. So like I cannot wait to see what kind of direction they take with this next trilogy of films, and the fact that Tom Holland is still going to be starring in these is going to be great, and that we're going to have a Spider-Man that has had more than 3 films under his belt.
Yeah, and now, like, you can already tell, like, Tom Holland likes being Spider-Man, so, like, I think that's pretty neat as well. I mean, who doesn't, right? Like, I would love to be Spider-Man. And, yeah, so just seeing him, like, I wonder how they're just going to evolve this. So, like, it's going to be interesting to see, like, how it fits even into the MCU anymore, like, because he, no one knows who he is. I wonder if they're going to start branching out Spider-Man himself more, like, just be, like, his own thing. Like, I would like to see him and Kingpin and Daredevil be things, like,
yes.
It's all in New York, so it makes sense. Like, I would like just, like, a whole like trilogy with just Kingpin, because Kingpin's like a big deal. So, and it's nice to ground the MCU, but I know that we're still dealing with a whole multiverse stuff, but just having like a villain like Kingpin and stuff could bring a lot to the MCU, I think. Not everything has to go to space. You know what I mean? Also, I love his new costume, by the way. Like, it's very classic, like,
oh my god,
red and blue.
yes.
So
yes, that costume at the end with like the sewing machine, I was like, no fucking way. Seeing that shit the second time around, I was like, I get to actually like fully appreciate this shit because now I know it's coming, you know. So just seeing him swing around in that all by himself on like during the holiday season is like, fuck, man. Like, he has no one. He literally has no one because he's Spider-Man. That's his gift. That's his curse. And that is who Spider-Man is. And yeah, it's just, that was just a great fucking ending. And honestly, I don't know where I would exactly put this within my tier list of Spider-Man movies. It's definitely within top 3, but it's not like number 1 or 2. So probably just like number 3, but top 3, top 5, somewhere around there. I would really have to like think about it just because like this movie has done so much with just like the other Spider-Man movies, but also just like wrapping up Tom Holland's version of the character.
Yeah, it both wraps it up and opens it up too. Like, it's like a really well done like movie. Like, they really thought all this stuff out. You know, especially with all the plot points from the other movies ending, and now like Tom Holland really coming on his own. Like, it was just really good. And now the subtitle makes sense with No Way Home because he really can't go home anymore because he's kind of like no one even knows who he is anymore. So yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Again, I don't know if it's my favorite. I still think Spider-Verse might be my favorite just because I think it's better as like you just watch it. Like, you don't have to be a fan of Spider-Man to enjoy it. But like in my heart, this probably is my number 1 just because I did grow up with all these movies and I could like fully appreciate everything about it. But yeah, it's hard to say. It's definitely like my like top 2 or 3 as well. Like, it's very good. And if you're not a Spider-Man, haven't watched it yet, I don't know what you're doing. Like, definitely watch it. But yeah, it's very good. It was a very good movie. I loved it. All the Easter eggs and cameos and editing of plot points, everything was perfect. Like, I couldn't ask for a better crossover of like Spider-Man before. So yeah.
Yeah, especially with how many worries we had going in with all of these villains and like the
and
multiverse
they did it so
shit.
well. Yeah,
they actually managed to pull it all off within.
They broke the Spider-Man 3 curse, or like just like the ending of a Spider-Man like saga. Like, they did it.
Yeah, they actually pulled it off, which is kind of crazy. And yeah, like there's just so much good to this movie, from the acting to the actual storyline. And yeah, I just can't wait to actually buy this on 4K Blu-ray and watch it at home, because with the fucking Omnicron shit going on, I'm not sure if I'm gonna see this in theaters again, but definitely seeing it twice in theaters, I do not regret it, especially on opening weekend. So
yeah. But
all right, is there anything else you would like to say, or?
Yeah, no, I think that's everything.
All right, so that is it for us, the Travis and Damian podcast for 2021. We will see you guys next episode in 2022. So happy New Year's, happy holidays. We will see you guys around.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next year. Whoop.